Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement webinar. I'm really excited to help you all prep for retirement. In this webinar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know in the 3 years leading up to retirement, or perhaps the 3 months leading up to retirement, or the 3 weeks leading up to it, depending on how far away it is for you. The bottom line there is that you're going to retire soon, sometime within the next weeks, months, or few years. And as somebody who's going to retire soon, you probably have various questions. Questions like, what do I need to know? What do I need to do? Well, I think that I know the answers to about 95% of the questions that you're going to ask because I've been doing this for a while. And I have arranged the answers to the questions I think you're going to ask in the form of this checklist. So we're going to go through this checklist during the presentation. And these are all the topics that we are going to cover and address. I'm first going to help you understand your Acera membership. As part of that discussion, we'll talk a little bit about your retirement contributions. I'll show you your retirement timeline. We'll talk about your tier. Okay, then we will move on to the topic of estimating your future retirement benefit from Acera. That's a pretty long topic. We do have a lot of stuff to talk about in there. One of the things that I want to talk about is the retirement formula that we use to calculate your retirement benefit. And I think if you understand how that works, and it's not that complicated, if you understand how that works, it will help you do some of the final dialing in of your retirement benefit to make sure that it's the maximum. As part of that discussion, we'll briefly touch on considering purchasing service credit. I will talk at length about how getting compensated for your unused vacation affects the salary component of the retirement formula. So we'll take a deep dive on that. And then I will show you our benefit estimator tool and show you how to get a precision estimate of your upcoming future retirement benefit from Acera when you retire. And that'll take the whole first half of the presentation. The second half, I will help you verify your retirement eligibility. I will talk about what you want to think about when choosing your retirement date, because you're going to choose that date. And then I will talk about the application process that you're going to go through to retire, including the retirement application and the 5 retirement allowance options that you will see on that application and what each option does and how to choose what the best option is for you. I will also tell you about other benefits that we offer, including and especially medical, dental, and vision benefits and a couple of other ones. As part of the 5 retirement allowance options, I'll talk about death benefits, and then we will talk about understanding life events for a little bit at the end of the presentation, and that will take us about 3 hours and 15 minutes, and then we will move into the 457B presentation from the 457B expert at about 12:15. So let's get started because we have a lot to cover. Okay, and for those of you that just joined us, we are going to be using, as you have questions about the particular topics that we're on, we're going to be using the Q&A feature today. So if you have a question about what we're talking about, you can type that into the Q&A feature, and I'll keep monitoring that so that I can answer your questions. And I may save some questions for later if I know that we're going to get to that topic later. Okay, first off, let me help you understand your membership, and let me tell you who is Acera. Answer that question. Who is Acera? In one sense, Acera is this acronym, the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But really, Acera is made up of a lot of people. There are about 90 plus Acera employees that work here. We are county employees, like many of you, and our entire job is to provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to our members. That's you. You are a member of Acera, so you are a part of the who that is Acera. And you're a member of Acera because of the position that you work in and who you work for. So at some point, or currently, you work or worked in a full-time position that is retirement eligible. Now, you don't have to maintain that full-time schedule. You could go down to part-time. You just had to at least start out full-time in that retirement eligible position working for one of the 6 public agencies in Alameda County that use Acera to provide retirement benefits to their employees. So if you work for one of these places in that retirement eligible position, you automatically are an Acera member. And in fact, your membership is mandatory. So it's automatic and mandatory. So you have to be an Acera member. And as an Acera member, with every paycheck that you receive, you pay into Acera's fund. So if you look at your paycheck, you look at your pay stub, and you look at the before tax deductions column because it all comes out before tax, it's a tax deferred contribution. You'll see a line in there. It'll say something like retirement, or maybe it says Acera. The different employers might have different ways of denoting that on the deductions before tax deductions column. But there will be a line in there, and you'll see money coming out of your paycheck, and that goes into Acera's fund every time you get paid. And then every time that happens, your employer is also making a contribution to Acera's fund on your behalf. So you're paying in, your employer is paying in. We don't want that money to just sit around and collect dust. So we invest it in a diverse array of investments all over the world with the goal of earning interest. And over long periods of time, we have historically tended to earn a significant amount of interest. And it's these three sources of income, your employee contributions, the employer contributions, and the investment earnings that give us this big pot of money that we call Acera's fund. So, what are we going to do with this money? Why are we collecting and earning this money? What do we have planned for this money? What's the purpose of this? Well, as you all probably are aware, as you work in your retirement eligible position as an Acera member throughout your entire career, the longer you work, the more and more credit you earn toward retirement. And then at some point in the future, you are going to retire. And at that point, you stop earning credit toward retirement and you start collecting on the retirement that you've earned in the form of a monthly retirement allowance. So you're going to get paid a retirement allowance each and every month from Acera on the last business day of the month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. It happens for the rest of your life. It's a really beautiful thing that you get to participate in this defined benefit pension plan because it is an amount of money, this retirement allowance, that you can plan on. You can get precision estimates, and I'll show you how to do that in this presentation. So you can plan on that precision estimate, and then that retirement allowance is guaranteed for the rest of your life. So it's kind of amazing. Now, a couple more things I want to say about this. The credit that you're earning toward retirement while you're still working comes in three different categories, which are the three factors of our retirement formula. I'll show you that in a few minutes. And when I talk about your monthly retirement allowance, I'll probably use some synonyms like pension, pension allowance, pension benefit, retirement benefit. These are all synonymous terms for this one concept, which is that you will get paid from Acera every month for the rest of your life. Okay, so those are the basics. Now let me show you this pension milestone chart, and I think this will provide some context for some of the detailed topic discussions that we're going to have about how Acera works. So these are the milestones that you can all expect. And since you're nearing retirement because you're in the pre-retirement webinar, you've probably already passed many of these milestones. Okay. So these are your Acera membership milestones. You have your date of hire into your full-time retirement eligible position. So this is your first day of work in that position. Now, for 4 of our employers, 2 weeks goes by, and the first day of your second pay period is your first day of Acera membership, known as your date of entry. For 2 of our employers, Livermore Area Recreation and Park District and the Housing Authority, there's no 2-week lag. Your date of hire into the retirement eligible position is your first day of Acera membership. Okay, now you're an Acera member. What happens? Well, you start earning credit toward retirement the longer you work. One of the categories that you earn credit in is called service credit, and it's basically time worked. So if you were to work for 5 full-time years, or the equivalent of 5 full-time years, once you pass that milestone, you are considered vested in the retirement system. Vesting is kind of a loose concept. It kind of means guaranteed. So when you're vested in the retirement system, you start being able to access the vested benefits, the guaranteed benefits, at 5 years. And you'll see more about what that means when I show you how the benefits get paid out and when you're eligible for them to get paid out a little bit later. Okay, so now you are vested in the retirement system. What happens next? Well, there's some combination of your years of service credit, so basically years worked, years earned with Acera, and your age that gets you to retirement eligibility. There's a few different combinations. I'll show you what those are a little bit later. But once you achieve that combination, that retirement eligibility, this is the first day that you could physically retire from Acera and start drawing that lifetime pension. Now, many people do not do that. Many people work past their first date of retirement eligibility, which is why I left a gap in the milestone chart because the longer you work, the more credit you earn, the higher that payment is. And I'll show you how that works when I talk about the retirement formula. That's the reason people keep working is the longer you work, the more you get paid out from Acera when you retire. Okay, so the next milestone is your last day on payroll with your employer. This is also known as your termination date. Okay, so this is the day that you stop earning service credit. And then for many people go straight from active work into retirement, which is why I've kind of overlapped these two milestones. Your retirement is a date that you choose. And so you tell us when you're going to retire. And if you're going straight into retirement, it will be two consecutive calendar days after, it will be the consecutive calendar day after your termination date. So your termination date will be one day and your retirement date will be the following calendar day. And I'll talk about that when I talk about choosing your retirement date. Okay. So when you leave your job, you stop earning credit toward retirement, and when you retire, you start collecting on the retirement that you've earned, and you'll collect that retirement, like I said, every month as a payment from Acera for the rest of your life until your death, and that's when your retirement payments stop. Now you'll note there's one more milestone on the chart, and that's because at the time of retirement, on your retirement application, you have the opportunity to name a continuant, a beneficiary for a continuance, which is a continuing monthly payment after your death. And so, if you do that, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the retirement allowance options and how to do that. Once you die, then your continuance beneficiary would receive that monthly payment in most cases for the rest of their life until their death. And then when your beneficiary dies, that concludes Acera paying out all the benefits that we owe to you and your family. Okay, at this point, I want to show you this tool. This is purely optional. You don't have to use this if you don't want to. But what we learned from doing this pre-retirement webinar for many years is that I throw a lot of numbers out at you, and you learn about a lot of specific numbers for your retirement situation. And so this worksheet is just a handy place to jot down all those numbers if you want to use it. So you can find that at acera.org/worksheet if you go out to the web. That's a shortcut to get to it. It's a PDF. I'll show you how to navigate there. So you either type in acera.org/worksheet up here, or you go under this news and events tab at acera.org, and then you go down to retirement planning seminars. And then under webinar options, you are attending the pre-retirement webinar right now. So you open that one up and it's right here. It's this PDF. And your first move when you open this up is to download it. So click the download button, download it to your device because it is fillable. And if you do fill it electronically, you're going to want to be able to save it to your device. Okay, so it's 2 pages. I will refer to this throughout the presentation, but like I said, it's purely optional if you just want to take this stuff down on scratch paper, or if you just, can remember all of it, totally fine. It's just a handy tool for you, and it is a handy tool for me to denote when there are numbers that you might want to write down. Okay, so at this point, if you want to, and you happen to know your date of entry into Acera, you can put that in the worksheets. If you only know it like approximately, like it was November of 1999 or whenever it was, you can write down approximate dates too. That's totally fine. And at this point, if you have a projected retirement date in mind, you could pencil that in here. But I say pencil it in because you may learn something when we talk about choosing your retirement date that may make you want to shift your retirement date by a few days or a few weeks. Okay. Let me say a couple more quick things about vesting. I said it kind of means guaranteed, and it happens when you have earned 5 years of service credit with Acera. That also includes reciprocal service that you've earned. So there's this thing that you can do in California called establishing reciprocity. And it's where you link different retirement systems together, California retirement systems together. So if you used to work like in Marin County or another county like Contra Costa County and you earned a pension under their system and you come to Acera, you can link them together and it gives you some synergy regarding the benefits that you get from each. One of the synergistic effects is that all of the service credit you have earned under all of the reciprocal agencies is combined to figure out whether you're vested or not. Okay, so that's just one of the benefits of establishing reciprocity. And then where does the guarantee come from? The guarantee comes from state law. So this is the 1937 Act is California state law. It governs everything that we do at Acera. It tells us how to calculate the retirement benefits and how to basically administer everything at Acera. And the guaranteed benefits, the vested benefits, are that monthly retirement benefit for life, that monthly pension benefit, an annual cost of living adjustment in retirement, which is an annual percentage increase to your retirement allowance, and this $1,000 lump sum death benefit. Now there are some other death benefits available. I'll talk about that when I talk about the retirement options a little bit later. But I just wanted to mention this one as well because that is a guaranteed benefit. And we will talk about more. I will tell you more details about the cost of living adjustment a little bit later. But these are the basic list of guaranteed benefits. Okay, so if you want to, you could put in your vested date in the worksheet here. If you happen, basically you take your Acera entry date. If you worked full time, you just add 5 years. If you already know that you have 5 years or more of service credit, the vested date is not important, so you don't have to put that in. Okay, let me tell you about your tier. And I think somebody just joined us. And we're maybe 10 slides in. And so if you have questions as we go along, feel free to type those into the Q&A if you have a question about whatever topic that we're talking about. So there's a Q&A feature that you can type your questions into. Okay, so you all are in one of these tiers. Now, let me help you figure out which tier you're in and which timeline to look at here. So if you are a safety member, which is a sheriff's deputy or a probation officer, you are looking at the bottom timeline here. Now, everyone who's not a safety member is a general member. So you are looking at the top timeline here, unless you are a general member who works for the Housing Authority or a general member who works for Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, and then you look at the timeline for your employer. The way the tiers work is that if you entered Acera, your date of entry, your first day of Acera membership, before the cutoff date for the tier, that would put you in the earlier tier. So, for example, if you entered as a general member before July 1st, 1983, that would have put you in tier 1. That was a long time ago. There's not a lot of tier 1 members left who haven't retired yet. Now, if you entered Acera July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would have put you in tier 2. If you entered Acera January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that would have put you into tier 4, and that's the case with all the timelines. You'll notice that the Housing Authority has a different tier 1 cutoff. LARPD does not have a tier 2, they have a tier 3. They negotiated for their employees, and there's a different tier 1 cutoff. Safety members have 3 tier 2s. The differences between all of the tiers are that we calculate your retirement slightly differently. You'll see that. I'll note that as we go through the presentation, what the differences between the tiers are. So that's the difference between the 3 tier 2s for the safety members as well. And if you are a safety member and you entered October 17th, 2010, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, you had a choice between these 2 tier 2s, tier 2C and tier 2D. And you had to make that choice within your first 45 days of membership. And if you didn't, you were defaulted into one of the tiers. Now, if you don't know what tier you're in and you don't remember your date of entry, and it's something close to one of the cutoffs, so you're not sure, the best way to verify both your date of entry and your tier is to log into your Acera account on our website. And it will tell you not only your date of entry and not only your tier, it will tell you a bunch of other stuff about your Acera account, including how much service credit you've earned, how many employee contributions you've paid in, and that's how you access the benefit estimator tool that gives you precision benefit estimates. Let me show you how to get in there real fast since we're talking about it. Because if you haven't done it yet, you may not be able to do it today, but you could do it within a few days. Okay, so here's how you do it. You navigate to acera.org on your web browser. At the top of every acera.org page is this login button. You click that. Okay, now if you've already logged in here in the last, let's say, year or so, since about November of 2024, you have logged in, then you're good. You just need to put in your username and password and log in. If you have not logged in that time, I say November of 2024 is because we relaunched our member portal then with a new member portal. All the old login info got deleted on purpose because we want you to create a new account and to keep things nice and secure because there is financial information in here and we want to make sure that only Acera members are logging into their accounts. Okay. So if you need to create your login, you're going to need to click the enroll link here. So you click enroll, and to enroll, you're going to need an enrollment pin. This is the part that's going to take a few days. Okay, so what you do right now, today, is you click this link, request an enrollment pin, and then you fill out your info here. And if it matches the info that we have in the database, when you hit request pin, it will tell you that we've successfully received your request. And then what that generates is a letter on our end. And one of my colleagues will put that letter in the mail for you, and you'll receive it in US mail in a few days with your PIN. And it will have instructions for you that will bring you back to this page. You can put in your enrollment PIN here and then fill out the rest of your info, create your username and password, click enroll, and then you will be able to use your username and password to log in. Okay. Now, one thing I want to mention is if you get an error on this request pin page, try an earlier zip code because sometimes we don't have your updated address. Try your old zip code and it may work. Okay. Um, and the same goes for the enrollment screen as well. Okay, so going back to the presentation. Okay, so now we've talked about your tier. You're all in one of the tiers. If on your worksheet you want to mark which tier you're in, you can mark that. If you just want to write it down or you can remember, that's totally fine as well. Like I said, the worksheet is purely optional. Okay, moving on to the next section. Let's talk about estimating your future retirement benefit from Acera. Okay. As part of this discussion, I want to show you our pension formula. This is the formula that we use to determine your retirement allowance when you retire. So this is what we use to figure out how much we're going to pay you every month when you retire. And we're going to pay it to you every month for the rest of your life, as I said. Okay. The reason I want to show this to you is because you may learn something in here that will help you do that final dial in to make sure that the monthly retirement allowance for life is the maximum that it can possibly be because we want you to get the maximum retirement allowance that you've earned. And there are a few caveats in here that may help you increase that slightly to the maximum that you've earned. Okay. So let me walk you through how we calculate your retirement, and I think that will that will help you do that. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna explain this multiplication, and I'm gonna first start with this sentence here. In retirement from Acera, so this is from Acera, your pension system, you are going to get from Acera a percentage of your highest salary that you've earned while you're working for each year of service that you worked. Basically, each year of service credit that you earned with Acera. Okay. So this sentence is saying in English what this multiplication is doing. Let me plug in some numbers here, and I think it will help make this real simple for you. Okay, let's say, for example, that the percentage of your highest salary that you are going to get for each year of service in this age factor percentage factor here is 2%. Okay, so you're going to get 2% of your highest salary for each year of service. Now, let's say also, for example, that at the time of retirement, you earned exactly 20 years of service credit. Service credit is measured in years, so we would plug 20 years of service credit into the formula. Okay. So what that means is that in retirement, as your retirement allowance, you are going to get 2% of your highest salary for each and every one of those 20 years of service credit. That means that we're going to take the 2% of your salary and we're going to line them all up 20 times. 2% plus 2% plus 2% 20 times. We're essentially multiplying them together equals 40%. So when we multiply the 2% times the 20 years, we get 40%. Okay, so now we know that your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of your highest average monthly salary. So to finish out the example, let's say that your highest average monthly salary while you were working was $5,000 per month. We finish out the multiplication. 40% of $5,000, or another way to say it is 40% times $5,000 is $2,000. And this becomes your retirement allowance that you get every month for the rest of your life from Acera. Okay, now, because this is a multiplication, the higher any of these three factors in the multiplication are will equal a higher retirement allowance. The higher the age factor percentage, the higher the years of service credit, the higher the salary equals a higher monthly retirement allowance for life. So the way that you ensure that your monthly retirement allowance for life is the maximum is ensuring that each of these three numbers is the maximum. Let me tell you in detail how we calculate each one of these numbers, and I think that will illuminate how to make sure that they're the maximum. Okay. So the first factor, the age factor percentage. How do we figure out which percentage to use? Because it's not necessarily going to be 2% like in the example I was giving you. What we do is we use this age factor percentage chart. These are all the age factor percentages in the state law that tell us how to calculate your retirement. So because they're in the state law, they're codified in there, these don't change. These numbers don't change. Now, what you're going to do in this example chart is you're going to find your tier and you're going to ignore the other columns. So if you're a general tier 2 member, you're looking at this column only. If you're a safety member, you find your tier over there, you look at that column only, whichever one it is, okay? So let's say, for example, that you're a general tier 2 member and you retire at age 60. So we come to the chart, we see age 60, general tier 2 is where those intersect, and 1.92% is the percentage of your highest salary that you would get for each year of service in retirement if you retired as a general tier 2 member at age 60. You'll note that the percentages go up the older you are. So that's one of the ways to crank up your retirement allowance and crank up the age factor percentage is just to get older. Okay. And it's not that, getting older, working longer, those kind of go hand in hand. So as you get older and work longer, you kind of increase two factors at the same time in the formula. You increase the age factor percentage and the years of service credit. And the one key about the age factor percentage is that the percentages actually go up every quarter year that you age, every 3 months that you age, and it's based on your birthday. So for example, if your birthday was January 15th, 3 months after January 15th is April 15th. Okay. So you've aged a quarter year, and there's actually an incremental percentage increase for each quarter year of age. I don't have them all listed out here, and there's big gaps in the ages because all of the increases don't fit on the slide. But if this were the full chart, and you can find it at acera.org/age, it would say like 52, 52 and a quarter, 52 and a half, 52 and three quarters, 53, and so on and so forth. Every quarter year you age, there's a slightly higher age factor percentage. And so the way to dial in the age factor percentage is if you're going to retire right around the date that it would increase, you just make sure you get the next 3 month, the next increase based on having passed that 3 month date. Okay. You'll also note that there's a maximum percentage that each tier pays. So that's denoted by the blue box. For example, General Tier 2, the maximum percentage it ever pays is 2.43%. That's the maximum number we can plug into the formula. So if you retired at age 65 or 66 or 67 or older, you would just get the 2.43% in the formula for you. So once you reach the maximum age for your tier, the age factors stop increasing and we just use whatever the maximum is in the formula for you. Okay, so that's how we figure out which one of the age factor percentages to plug in to the formula. Okay, so I think I explained everything about that. We will revisit this later when we talk about choosing your retirement date, because I want to make sure that you don't retire right before one of those quarter year age factor increase days. Okay, let me tell you how we calculate service credit. Service credit, you start earning it when you enter Acera, and you're going to earn it throughout your entire career, all the way up until your last day on payroll with your employer. Service credit is measured in years. So if you go into your Acera account and you look at your service credit number, it'll be measured in years, but you'll also see some decimal places after that. Perhaps 5 decimal places after that. Your service credit number might say something like 17.84265. And all of those decimal places are us actually calculating your service credit down to the fraction of a day, down to the last 15 minutes of the last day on payroll that you work. And you get all of those decimal places in the formula for you. So you get all that service credit. Okay. Now, when do you earn service credit? Well, you earn service credit during your regular work hours. That makes sense. But you also earn service credit during your earned leave times, including earned vacation leave, sick leave, management leave if you get that, comp time if you have some of that, holidays and floating holidays. Whenever you mark these on your timesheet, you're earning service credit during that time. Now, you do not earn service credit anytime when you're on leave without pay. You're not earning service credit. If you're not getting a paycheck from your employer, you're not earning service credit. You also do not earn service credit during a purchased vacation. I think 4 of our employers allow purchased vacation, and this is where they let you purchase extra vacation on top of your earned vacation. And whenever you purchase extra vacation, you mark that on your timesheet, you're not earning service credit during the purchased vacation. Okay, now, sold vacation. This is a different concept from the purchased vacation. Sold vacation is where you take your earned vacation, that benefit that you earn, and you sell it back to your employer for cash. You don't go out on the vacation, you don't mark it on your timesheet, you're just selling it back to your employer for cash. If you sell vacation, you don't earn service credit for it, but it may increase the salary part of the retirement formula, and we will talk about that at length in a few minutes. You also do not earn service credit for overtime, on call time, or standby time. Okay, so I want to touch on this briefly, and I'm not going to take a deep dive into it because I've found that people who are getting ready to retire mostly have already purchased the service credit that they were going to purchase, but maybe not. So I just want to mention that this exists if you want to look into it further, because like I said, the higher the service credit, the higher any of those 3 factors in the formula, the higher the retirement allowance. The more service credit we can put in the formula for you, the higher your retirement allowance will be. And one of the ways to increase service credit, the other main way to do it, besides working longer, is by purchasing service credit if you have eligible time to purchase. Now, you can't just purchase plain old what they call airtime, which is like, I want another year, so I'm going to purchase it. You can't do that. It has to fall into one of these categories. And the categories are kind of like it's like mostly either time worked before your retirement eligible position that's eligible, or there's some kind of gaps in time during your career that are eligible for purchase that you didn't earn service credit for already. And so some examples are in the category of time worked before your full-time retirement eligible position. It's plain part-time work, not contract or temporary agency time. Just part-time work for your employer or the county's temporary assignment pool. That's all purchasable, or project work. There's some other categories in there like seasonal, intermittent, service as needed. Those are all purchasable. When you become an Acera member, the 2-week lag time between your date of hire and your date of entry is purchasable. If any point in your career you went out on unpaid leave in these three categories, medical, disability, or military, the medical is for your medical condition only, and you can purchase that unpaid medical leave when you return from it, up to 1 year per instance of medical leave. Disability leave, and this is also workers' comp is factored in here as well. That's available for purchase. Any part, sometimes you're partially paid by your employer, and sometimes you're paid by the state disability insurance system or workers' comp system. And for that part where you weren't paid from your employer, that partial time is purchasable. And then military leave is not prior military service. It's where you go out on military leave during your active work with your employer. When you return from that, you can buy that. Redeposits of prior memberships are where you used to work for one of our employers, you left, you took a refund of your Acera account, so we canceled your account and you lost all your service credit. Then you come back to work here, you can put an equivalent amount of money back in to get that equivalent amount of service credit back, and that's called a redeposit of a prior membership. Redeposits of community property are where you were married or in a state registered domestic partnership while you were earning credit toward retirement with Acera. And when that relationship, either through divorce or dissolution of the partnership, when that relationship ended, the community property of which Acera is considered community property, as your Acera account is considered community property, some of that often will get divided to the ex-spouse or partner. If that happens and they get their own account, and if they take a refund of their own account, we send you a letter in the mail letting you know that that happened and give you the opportunity to redeposit an equivalent amount of money to get the amount of service credit back that they took with them. That's a redeposit of community property. And then other California public agency work is where you used to work for another California public agency, for example, East Bay Mud or the Port of Oakland. They have their own pension system. If you're not eligible for a pension from their pension system, you can buy that time as a Sarah service credit. So that's about all I'm going to say about that. There is a full article at acera.org/purchase. If you do want to take a deep dive into this topic, we do a deep dive during the new employee mid-career webinar. So all you do is go out to acera.org, scroll down on the home page to the webinars and seminars section, and then you just open this up here. It's a YouTube video, and you can watch it on YouTube if you click the button down here to make it bigger. And all you're going to do is just fast forward through it until you get to the slide that I was just on, which is the service credit purchases slide. And then there's a deep dive on this topic there. Okay. So going back to the presentation, one more thing I do want to say about service credit before we move on to the salary component of the formula is regarding your unused sick leave. Okay, so what happens to your unused sick leave? Well, if like many of our members, your plan is to go straight from active work into retirement, and you do it, which is very easy to do, and I'll talk about it at length when I talk about choosing your retirement date. If you do it where your last day on payroll and your retirement date are 2 consecutive calendar dates, that means you're going straight from active work into retirement, and we will convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to additional service credit. Now, there's a cap on how much is convertible. It's in your MOU. Your MOU is your Memorandum of Understanding, so those are the rules around your bargaining unit. If you don't have an MOU because you don't have a bargaining unit, I think that there is no cap. Many of the caps are 125 days of sick leave that's convertible. So let's say that you're in one of those bargaining units and you had 130 days of sick leave left on the books. Well, anything above the cap, we have to get rid of. It disappears. So that extra 5 days goes poof and it disappears. You don't get anything for that. But then the amount that is convertible, 125 days of sick leave, we divide it by 2. And that means that we will convert it to 62.5 days of service credit, which is half of 125. Now that is work days. That's not calendar days. So if you spread out 62.5 work days, that equals about 12 or so work weeks. It's about a quarter year. So you would get another 0.25 years on top of the amount of service credit that we put in the formula for you. And that's another way that you dial up your service credit is by getting that sick leave conversion by going straight from active work into retirement. Now, what this does not do, this does not push out your retirement date by 62 and a half days. Your retirement date is your retirement date. All this does is change the number of the amount of service credit that we plug in the formula for you to make it bigger so that your retirement allowance is bigger. Okay, so we talked about the age factor percentage and how we calculate that. We talked about the service credit measured in years, how we calculate that. Let me tell you how we calculate your highest average monthly salary to finish out our discussion of the retirement formula. Okay, so here's how we calculate that. What our software is going to do is it is going to find, because it has all your payroll records on file, because your employer transmits those to us so we can do this calculation, it is going to find your period of consecutive highest pay from any point in your career. In our pension lingo, this is known as your final compensation period, so your period of highest consecutive pay. Now, if you're in tiers 1 or tier 3, tiers 1 or tier 3, your final compensation period is going to be your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods. If you're in tiers 2 and 4, it's going to be your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods, depending on whether you're paid biweekly or monthly. So essentially, if you're in tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay. If you're in tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 3 years of pay. And remember, it's consecutive pay. So it's not one pay period from here, one pay period from over there. No, it's your highest consecutive pay periods that are all consecutive, all in a row. So the goal that our software sets out to do by figuring out the final compensation period is to determine your highest average monthly salary. So all it does is it looks at how much you were paid over that highest year of pay or 3 years of pay in total, the total amount you were paid during that time, and it takes an average. It divides it by the number of months because it's getting a monthly average, divides it by 12 months or 36 months, and that becomes your highest average monthly salary. And that is the number that we plug into the formula for you in the salary part of the formula. Okay, now what salary components go into this calculation, you may be asking? Well, first off, I want to point out that it's all gross pay before any deductions are taken out. Okay, so there's 4 types of pay that can go into this salary calculation. Base pay always goes in. That makes up the bulk of your highest average monthly salary. Now, there could be some other pay types. Sometimes these are known as footnotes, but they're basically other pay codes that you see on your paycheck. Sometimes they are given to you, paid to you because of a skill level that you have, or an education level, or maybe a language that you speak in your position. So there's like 1,000 different pay codes. I can't tell you off the top of my head whether your pay code will count or not, but you can go to acera.org/paycodes if you're curious. And there's a PDF for your employer, and you find your pay code on there, and it'll say yes or no whether it's included in this calculation or not. If you need help finding it, your payroll manager can usually help you. Overtime is the one pay code that I know never counts. Okay. Now, there's 2 more bullet points that I'm going to put up here. 2 more types of pay that can be included in the highest average salary calculation. Vacation sales and vacation cash out. And this is only for tier 1 and 2 people who work in certain employers, okay? So tier 3 people, you work for LARPD, they don't let you do this. Tier 4, the state, when they created Tier 4 back in 2012, which took effect in 2013, they disallowed vacation sales and cash out to be included as salary. Okay, so it's only tier 1 and 2 people. Okay, so if you're in tier 1 and tier 2, well, actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little bit of a deep dive into this concept, and you'll find out why in just a second, okay? But to the tier 3 and tier 4 members, you can take a little break if you want. We'll probably talk about this for 10 minutes. Okay, so here's how this works. Here's how this whole concept works of vacation compensation and whether or not it will be included as salary for calculating your retirement, how much, and what it will do. Okay, here's how this works. Okay, so again, our software is looking at your final compensation period, your period of highest pay from your career. Okay, and again, it's your highest year for tiers 1 and 3. Actually, I'll just talk to the tier 1 and 2 members. It's your highest year for tier 1, your highest 3 years for tier 2. Okay, so if you were compensated for your earned vacation that you're not going to take in the form of vacation sale or vacation sell, this happens while you're still employed, okay? And the way that that works is you take your earned vacation, you sell it back to your employer while you're employed, and that's called vacation sale. The other category here is vacation cash out, and this is simply when you have vacation that you have not taken left over on the books when you stop working and or retire from Acera. Okay. So at that point, if you have vacation left over on the books, your employer will cash you out for it. They'll basically pay you for the amount of vacation that you have left over that you didn't get to take. It's called a vacation cash out. Okay. Now, mostly in these examples, I'm going to be talking to the people whose final compensation period is at the end of your career, because that's the vast majority of people. You're getting paid the highest rate of pay at the end of your career. So your highest consecutive pay periods are at the end of your career. That's not necessarily the case. Some people will get paid a lower rate at the end of their career for various reasons. Maybe you want to ease out. That's totally fine. In your case, your final compensation period would probably be an earlier period, and in that case, the vacation cash out won't count. Only any vacation sales you made during that earlier final compensation period. But for the vast majority of you, we're going to be looking at the combination of vacation sales and vacation cash out. And we're going to be, so this is going to, the combination, the sum of these two dollar amounts is going to be, we're going to call it your total vacation compensation that you were paid during your final compensation period. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. Your total vacation compensation through a combination of you selling vacation and or cashing out vacation. Okay. So now we have kind of defined the compensation that we're talking about and the time period that we're talking about it in. Okay, so what's the idea here? The idea of this topic is that if you are compensated for your earned vacation, earned unused vacation during that final compensation period, your total salary during that final compensation period is a little bit bigger. Because your total salary during the final compensation period is a little bit bigger, when our software calculates your average salary during that final compensation period, your average salary is a little bit bigger. Because your average salary, your highest average monthly salary, is one of the three multipliers in the retirement formula. Having a higher average salary means your retirement allowance is a little bit bigger. So the bottom line here is that getting compensated for your earned vacation during the final compensation period increases your retirement allowance by a little bit. When I say it increases it by a little bit, how much am I talking about? Okay, well, here is a handy chart that will allow you to get an approximate idea of how much it would increase your retirement allowance. Okay, so it's based on how much vacation that Acera includes as salary for calculating your retirement allowance, and it's measured in weeks in this chart. Okay, so let's say, for example, you are compensated for 6 weeks of your earned vacation through either vacation sales, vacation cash out, or both. A total of 6 weeks among those two categories during that final compensation period. Well, that would, when Acera goes to calculate your retirement allowance, that would increase your retirement allowance from what it would have been had you not been paid this by 3.8% at the time of retirement and for the rest of your life. So we bake that into the calculation when we do the first calculation. And you get that increased retirement allowance for the rest of your life. So you can see why this is a compelling topic that people want to know about. And the more weeks that you get paid, the greater the effect is. You'll note that I was showing you the tier 2 column. For tier 1, the effect is accelerated because of the shorter final compensation period, and it just maths out that way. Okay. So now I tell you about the cap. There's a cap on the amount of vacation compensation that Acera would include, may include as salary for calculating your retirement. Now, I'm saying may include. You'll note that the slide says must include, and I do like to take an aside here for just a second and talk about that. And the reason I say must on the slide is because that state law tells us this is the cap is defined by state law. Okay. According to state law, there is a certain amount of your vacation compensation that is just uh, considered salary for calculating your retirement. It just is. That's the way the law works. Okay. And I just like to point that out because occasionally there are observers from outside the pension system that have certain opinions about this, and their opinion doesn't matter because this is how state law tells us to do these calculations, and so that's what we must do. If you are compensated for your earned vacation during the final compensation period, and it's under or up to whatever the cap is for you, we have to include it as salary for calculating your retirement. And because we have to include it, that is why I take 10 minutes out in this webinar to show you how it works. Because if that's how we're calculating it, I feel it's my responsibility to show you exactly how we are calculating it so that it's not a mystery because we like to be as transparent as we can with how the pension system works. So let me break it down for you and show you how it works as simply as I can. So on this first slide, I'm going to talk to the Alameda Health System employees um, because yours is calculated slightly differently. And then on the next slide, I'll talk to everyone else. Okay, so for Alameda Health System employees, to figure out what the cap is on the maximum amount of vacation compensation that Acera may and must include as salary for calculating your retirement, all you need to know is one number, and that is how much PTO you earn per pay period. And for everyone else, just as an aside, the PTO, that paid time off, Alameda Health System does it differently than everyone else. They kind of put sick leave and vacation leave in one bucket and call it PTO. Okay, so you look at your pay stub. I believe it's on your pay stub, and it tells you how many hours of PTO you earned in your last pay period. Then you plug that number into here. Okay, in this example, it's 6.7692 hours of PTO per that last pay period. If you're in tier one, you multiply that number by 13. If you're in tier two, you multiply that number by 39, and that gives you your limit in hours. Now, there's one exception. If you are in the UAPD union, you don't have to do any math. You don't have to look at your pay stub. There's a flat cap, and that is for tier one members, 120 hours of PTO is considered available for is the maximum, and 360 hours for tier two is the cap on the PTO. So, okay, so now all the Alameda Health System employees, now you know what the maximum amount of hours is of vacation compensation. If you were paid that maximum amount, we would include all of those hours of vacation compensation, all the dollar amounts as salary for calculating your retirement allowance. Okay, so that's Alameda Health System employees. Now let me talk to the county and other employees. And let me just, I see a question popped up. Let me check on that. Okay, let me answer that question a little bit later because we are going to talk about that. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so I'm talking about the cap on vacation compensation for everyone else who's not an AHS employee. Okay, so what you all are going to need to know is two numbers. You need to know how much vacation you earn per year. In this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year, and it's based on your seniority. I think if you've worked here, at least in the county, it is. In the county, if you've worked for more than 21 years, For the county, I think you start earning 5 weeks of vacation per year. I think between 10 and 21, you earn 4 weeks per year, if I recall correctly. I could be wrong. If you earn if you've worked 5 to 10 years, you're in 3 weeks, and if you are less than five, you're at 2 weeks, I think. So you plug that in here. Whatever it is for you. So if you don't know what it is, you can ask your payroll clerk, and they will help you figure that out. You also need to know how much vacation you are allowed to sell per year. So some of our employers let you sell vacation, and if they let you sell it, then we can include that vacation in we can do this calculation to include some vacation as salary for calculating your retirement. So you need to plug that number in here. Now, this again, your payroll clerk might know what this number if you don't know, but this is somewhere in your employer's rules, could be in your handbook, could be somewhere else, the maximum weeks of vacation they will allow you to sell per year. And typically they won't let you sell all that you earn if you're earning more than two. I think I think for a lot of people who are not management, the maximum is two. It tends to be two. For people in management, it tends to be three. I've heard of some people who could sell four or maybe even five. I'm not sure what classifications they're in, but I think the vast majority of people can either sell two or three. Okay. So you plug those numbers in here. Now, if you're a tier one member, you're just filling out the first column. But for most people are probably in tier two, so you're going to need to fill out all three columns. And the way that you fill this out is you're thinking about your highest 3 years of what your highest 3 years of pay is going to be. And you basically what you're going to do if you're making your one way to figure this out, the easiest way to figure this out is to log into your account on our website, use the benefit estimator, and it will tell you exactly which 3 years it's going to use as your final compensation period. A kind of easy shorthand ballpark way to do it is, especially if your final compensation period, your period of highest pay is going to be at the end of your career, it's just going to be your last 3 years. You take your retirement date, you subtract 3 years into the past, that's your final compensation period. Okay. Uh, Especially if you're working full time. So if you're not working full time, we will tack on additional pay periods to get you up to the equivalent of the 3 years of full time pay periods for the calculation. Okay, so what you're doing is you're kind of thinking about that period and you're dividing it into kind of three 1 year periods. And then whatever amount of vacation you were earning at the end of each one of those three 1 year periods is what you plug in here. You also plug in how much you're allowed to sell per year. You'll find out when I tell you how this works in just a minute that this one doesn't really change unless your bargaining unit renegotiates that, and this is probably what's going to dictate what this limit is going to be in most cases. Um, but so let me show you how this works. In this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year. So they plug in five, five, and five. They earn five for each one of those three 1 year periods in their highest period of pay. And then they're allowed to sell two, two, and two. So they're allowed to sell 2 weeks of vacation each one of those years if they wanted to. Okay, now we have all these numbers, and so now we figure out what the limit is. That's how we figure out the cap on vacation compensation that we're allowed to include as salary. So what we do is we can plug those numbers into this calculator that we have out on our website. So if you go to acera.org/vacation, you can use the calculator. So I'm going to go out to the website and do that. acera.org/vacation. And that is a shortcut to this place where it explains what I'm explaining to you right now, and it gives you the calculator. So you open up this first accordion, and if you were in tier one, you would put in the 5 weeks that you earn, and then you would put in the 2 weeks that you're allowed to sell, and it gives you your maximum weeks of vacation compensation that we're allowed to include in your salary calculation. If you're in tier two, you click that, and it gives you the opportunity to put in each one of the numbers for each one of those 1 year periods. And it gives you a running total. And you can see that the maximum amount in this example of vacation compensation that we could include as salary for calculating this person's retirement is 6 weeks worth of vacation compensation. Now that I showed you the calculator, it's actually very simple and you don't even need to use it. All it's doing is taking the lesser of each of these two numbers and adding them together. So the lesser of 5 and 2 in all three cases is 2. And then it's going 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. Okay. So now that you know how it works, you don't really need to use the calculator. So again, 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. And that's why basically, in most cases, the limit is dictated by how much you're allowed to sell. It's not always the case, but in most cases it is. Okay. So the lesser of 5 and 2 and 5 and 2 and 5 and 2, 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. Okay, so now that we have the limit, now what do you do with that information? Okay, so you're going to retire soon. You're planning to retire soon. And let's say that you're hearing this for the first time. I didn't know that getting compensated for my vacation could increase my retirement allowance at the time of retirement and for the rest of my life. What do I do with that information? Well, now you know that your limit is if you are interested in maximizing your retirement allowance under the law, all you need to do is try to get paid for that amount of vacation up to your limit during that final compensation period. Okay. So by far the easiest way to do it is simply have that amount of vacation left over on the books when you stop working and go into retirement. And you don't have to worry about selling vacation back to your employer. So this person in this example sells 0 weeks of vacation back to their employer. They cash out 6 weeks up to their limit, and that means we will include 6 weeks of additional vacation compensation as salary for calculating their retirement. And their retirement allowance will increase at the time of retirement by about 3.8% at the time of retirement in their first retirement payment and for the rest of their life. Okay. Now, let me give you a different example because there's one more rule that you need to know about here. And that is it only applies to some people. But this one rule, first off, the rule that I'm about to tell you applies to everyone, but it may only affect some people. Okay, so in this example, this person earns 4 weeks of vacation per year. They're a tier 2 person, and they are allowed to sell 3 weeks of their earned vacation per year if they wanted to. Okay. Now, their limit, if we did the calculator, it would take the lesser of each of these three numbers, these three columns. The lesser of 4 and 3 is 3 in every case, so 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. That is the limit on vacation compensation that we can include as salary for calculating their retirement. Now, this extra rule that applies to everyone, but may not affect everyone, is that your employer will only cash you out for 2 times your annual accrual rate of vacation, max. Okay. So this person earns 4 weeks of vacation every year. So 2 times their annual accrual rate is 8. Okay. Now you may see where I'm going with this. They can have 8 weeks of vacation on the books when they stop working and retire, and their employer will cash them out. But if they have anything more than that, their employer will not cash them out, and in fact, they will get nothing for it. So let's say they know that their limit is 9, and they tried to have 9 weeks on the books to cash out. Their employer would only cash them out for 8. That extra 9 that they still had on the books when they stopped working, it would go poof. It would disappear and they would get nothing for it. Okay. Which is why, in the case where you can't get up to your limit from the cash out alone, that is the scenario where you may want to think about selling some vacation back to your employer before you stop working there. And I think you can do it pretty late in your career. As long as they'll let you sell it, you can sell it. So while you're still working in this example, this person, if they wanted to max this out, they would sell that extra week of vacation before they retired and then have the 8 weeks cash out. That would equal 9 weeks, and that would get them up to their limit. This person in the previous example doesn't need to do that. 5 times 2 is 10. So they can just have the 6 on the books and they don't have to worry about selling. Okay. So that's why I say it only applies to somebody, it only affects you in terms of getting up to your limit in some instances. Now, the last thing I want to talk about when I'm talking about this is what happens, because many people will have already sold vacation. You may be asking yourself, well, what happens if I already sold a bunch of vacation? Let's say you already sold some vacation during that final compensation period. Let's say you sold 5 weeks in this example, and your limit is still 9 in this example. So what happens? Well, that's totally fine. You just kind of have two options. Option number one is that you would just cash out the difference. So you figure out what your limit is. You know how much you sold, and then all you need to do is cash out the difference. So if you sold 5, the difference between 9 and 5 is 4. So you just have 4 on the books, and that would get you up to the 9 between the combination of the 5 you sold and the 4 that you're cashing out. And we would include 9 weeks worth of vacation compensation as salary for calculating your retirement. Option number two is you could even cash out more than that, up to 2 times your accrual rate. And that's totally fine too. If you have a lot of vacation still left over that you're not going to take and you already sold a bunch, that's perfectly fine. In fact, when you sell the 5 weeks back to your employer, all that money goes into your bank account, that 5 weeks worth of pay. And then you cash out 8 weeks at retirement. That 8 weeks worth of money goes into your bank account. That 8 weeks worth of pay. That's a total of 13 weeks worth of vacation compensation that you were cashed out. Now, the limit under the law is 9. So we take 9 of that 13 and we include that as salary when we calculate your salary for calculating your retirement. But you still get to keep all 13, the 9 plus the 4 weeks extra. You get all that money that goes into your bank account. Okay. Okay, so I think that is most of the details I want to tell you about this concept and how to do this. If you get paid less than your cap, totally fine. It's whatever weeks you are get compensated for. That's what we use as salary for calculating your retirement. Does anyone have any questions on this before I move on? Okay, so I see a question just popped up regarding this topic. Okay, so it sounds like your scenario is that your employer's rule is you are allowed to sell 3 weeks per year. Okay. And your vacation cash out is 10. So your limit from the calculator is 9 weeks. Okay, so it sounds like you're in the same scenario. You earn 4 weeks per year. If your limit is, well, actually, I don't know. Um, how much vacation do you earn per year? Do you earn 4 weeks per year? Okay, so you earn 5 weeks per year. So what you would be looking at is 5, 5, and 5. The limit is still the same because the lesser of 5 and 3 is still 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. Okay. But 5 times 2 is 10. So if you had 10 weeks on the books, you would be fine. So if you had 9 or 10 weeks on the books, you would be fine. And you would both get to keep all of the money from your earned vacation that you didn't take, and you would get up to your limit. Um, so you don't have to sell because you can get up to your limit from the cash out alone because you're allowed to cash out up to 10 weeks. So that's a pretty good position to be in. Any other questions on this before I move on? You're welcome. Okay, well, let me know if you think of anything. Tier 3 and 4 members, thanks for bearing with us. Welcome back. Okay, I'm going to give you this one slide, then we'll take a little break. Okay, I want to tell you about benefit limits on what Acera is allowed to pay you. Okay. Um, a lot of people will not hit these limits, so if you're getting worried, don't worry. Just let me walk you through these. Okay. The first limit is that Acera cannot pay you a larger retirement allowance than whatever we calculate your highest average monthly salary to be. Okay. So basically, your retirement allowance is capped at 100% of your highest retirement allowance. And this rule, the reason this is written into the law is to try to prevent you from earning more in retirement than you are earning as a working employee. And for the most part, that works exactly as intended. But as we just learned, your highest average monthly salary amount could be slightly higher if we include the vacation compensation. So that would be the cap for you in that case. But essentially, that rule does what it's supposed to do. If you do hit this cap, you are in amazing shape regarding retirement. That means that you're replacing your 100% of your salary with your retirement allowance. And then in most cases, if you paid in Social Security, you're going to get to collect Social Security on top of that. So combined, you will be making more than when you were working. So that's a good situation to be in if you do hit that. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of service credit, 35, 40 years of service credit to hit that cap. Okay, the next two caps are for people who have very high salaries. So I'm not going to spend any time there because it does not apply to most people. If you do have these very high salaries, go ahead and go to acera.org/limits and read more about these caps. And then the last one I want to talk about is the Tier 4 cap. So this is something created it's part of the law that the state enacted that created Tier 4 that took effect in 2013. And if you're in Tier 4, the law says that we are not allowed to include more annual salary dollars in your retirement calculation than this cap that is based on the Social Security wage index limit. So this wage index limit goes up every year. What you're seeing here are the dollar amounts for 2026. So if you're a general member and you have a higher annual salary than $159,733, or a safety member and you have a higher salary than $191,679, any annual dollars above that we cannot use for calculating the salary for calculating your retirement. So sorry that's the law. Now, the way that it functionally works regarding your pay and the year and your contributions and us calculating your retirement is that whenever you hit the cap in the year, like let's say you're a general member, you have a $200,000 salary. Well, you might hit that cap maybe in October. Okay. Once you have earned that year up to this capped amount, then Acera stops taking out employee retirement contributions from your check. And that gives you a higher paycheck between October and the end of December. And you could use that money to save in your 457B account, perhaps, or in your personal savings. And then on January 1st, the employee contributions kick back in. Okay. Okay, at this point, I am going to show you how to get a precision retirement estimate. All you do is you navigate to acera.org. You click the, excuse me, you click the login button. You put in your username and password, and you click login. And then once you get in here, you're going to click the estimate a benefit tool, and it's going to show you this screen here. It's going to ask you some questions. So let me just zoom in here so you can see it a little bit bigger. It is going to ask you for your projected separation date and payments begin date. So what you're doing is you're thinking about your retirement scenario that you want an estimate for, and you're thinking of a date combination that meets that scenario. So if your goal is to go straight from active work into retirement, these should be 2 consecutive days. Your separation date is your last day on payroll with your employer. Payments begin date is your first day of retirement from Acera. Now, if you're not planning on doing that, if you are going to stop working and then defer your retirement to a later date, then there would be a gap between these 2 dates, and you can do scenarios for that as well. Okay, so you can put in beneficiary info in here. If you have designated a beneficiary with Acera already, which everyone should have, you will see, you'll probably see that this is pre-populated. And if it's pre-populated, just check the date of birth to make sure it's correct, because if it's incorrect, it can throw off some of the numbers. Okay, then click, I recommend leaving these all blank for a nice conservative estimate, leaving them all unchecked and hitting generate. So when you hit generate, you end up with this PDF retirement benefit estimate. It's 4 pages. The first page is going to show you your estimated monthly benefit. And then if you zoom in on it, so I'll just zoom in on it here, you'll see that it gives you this member monthly benefit column, and it gives you a dollar amount depending on which one of the retirement options that you select at the time of retirement. So you can see what the effect to your monthly benefit would be of choosing one of the different retirement options, and then it gives you a column for what your beneficiary would receive every month after your death when you die in retirement. Okay, I'll talk about this column a little bit more later. Um, for right now, because we'll talk about the options in a little while, you can just kind of look at this unmodified option for right now. This is kind of what most people end up choosing anyway because it pays the highest of any of the options. But maybe not. When we get to the options, you might choose a different option. Page 2 shows you the information that the calculator used to do the estimate. And pages 3 and 4 show you a breakdown of the pay periods that it's using to calculate the salary component of the estimate. So you can see the past pay periods, if there are any, and then you can see any of the future projected pay periods that it's filling in with a projected amount of salary, which is usually based on whatever your last pay period is in the database. And that's how you get a precision estimate. There's not actually a lot to talk about because it's super easy and it takes 2 minutes. Like once you've done it before, you can generate as many of these as you want. You could do 100 of these for 100 different scenarios. So this system is available 24/7, and like I said, it gives you a very precision estimate based on the best math that's in our pension database. If you want to write in your precision estimate on your worksheet, you can do that. Or what I recommend is you just save that PDF in a folder on your device, and then you have all the different scenarios that you've done, or you can make printouts of them. So that's the best way to get a precision estimate. There is an alternative way, which is that you can have us do it for you. There's you fill out our retirement estimate request form on our forms page. What happens is we receive the request, we put it in a queue. One of my colleagues will do it for you, and they'll send you a letter with the estimate in it. These take time. This could take weeks, depending on how big the queue is at any particular moment or how far your projected retirement date is out. And then they send it through the mail, so that takes a little more time. So the benefit estimator uses the same software. You're just seeing the front end, they're using the back end, but it uses the same math, so you're going to get the same results. So, like I said, they're going to do one of these for you. You can do as many as you want if you log into the benefit estimator. So that's by far the best way to get a precision benefit estimate. Okay, let me talk about the next topic, verifying your retirement eligibility. So we're talking about this milestone on the pension milestones chart here, retirement eligibility. You become eligible to retire through some combination of your age and years of service credit. And for tiers 1, 2, and 3, there's 3 different combinations that get you there. I'll show you tier 4. There's 2 combinations on the next slide. So if you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3, the first combination that gets you to retirement eligibility is that you're at least age 50, you have at least 5 years of service credit, and you have at least 10 years of membership. Now, all 3 of these tiers closed more than 10 years ago, which means you all have more than 10 years of membership. Don't worry about that number. Just look at you're at least age 50, you have at least 5 years of service credit, you can retire from a SERA. Option number 2 is that as a general member, you have at least 30 years of service credit, or as a safety member, you have at least 20 years of service credit, you can retire at any age, even if it's younger than the age 50 that you need to retire in, under option number one. Option number three is that you can have any amount of service credit and retire at age 70, even if it's less than the 5 years you need under option number one. So if you had 4 years of service credit, you couldn't retire at age 50, but you could retire at age 70 and draw a lifetime pension based on that 4 years of service credit. So those are your three options. So it actually doesn't take, that old of an age or that much service credit to retire from a SERA. Okay, then for tier four, you have two combinations. As a general member, you have to be at least age 52, or as a safety member, at least age 50, and you can retire with a minimum of 5 years of service credit. Or you can retire with any amount of service credit at age 70, even if it's less than the 5 years you need under option number one. So, pretty easy. So, your day that you become eligible to retire, you can retire from a SERA on that day, or you can work longer, work past that, so that you earn more and more service credit toward retirement, so that you earn a higher and higher salary through cost of living adjustments or raises or promotions, and you get older. So all of those numbers in the age factor in the retirement formula are going up, so you earn more and more retirement the longer you work. Okay, so if you want to, you can put in your retirement eligibility date into the worksheet. If you want to, like I said, purely optional. If you already know you're eligible, you can just not worry about that date because once you're eligible, that date isn't really important. Okay, so let me help you choose your retirement date. Okay, so you're eligible to retire and you're thinking about retirement, which is why you're in the pre-retirement webinar. What are the factors that you're going to consider when actually choosing the exact date that you're going to retire and start collecting your pension? And again, this is this date on the pension milestone chart. It's a date that you choose. Okay. So here are the things that I'm going to want you to think about when finding the best date to retire. So let me go through each one of them individually. The first is this is simply a suggestion. I mean, it's a good idea to do. And it's basically you sit down and think, okay, once I get the Acera projection for how much Acera is going to pay me in retirement, is that going to be enough to live on in retirement? Because you're going to need to replace your working income with your retirement income. So hang on one second. Sorry about that. I locked my screen out by accident. Let me make sure that the sound and everything is still going. Okay, here we go. Okay, so um, what you should do is get that Acera retirement estimate. You should also take into consideration how much Social Security is probably going to pay you by getting an estimate from them. You can start collecting Social Security at age 62, or you can wait longer for a higher payment. And it's also a good time to look in your deferred compensation account to see how much money is in there. And when you consider all of these sources of income together, a kind of shorthand way to figure it out is if they add up to at least 80% of what you were making while you were working, you will be able to maintain your standard of living. That's kind of what financial planners say. The higher the percentage, the better. It doesn't have to be exactly 80%. Like maybe you're planning on reducing your expenses in retirement by moving to a cheaper place. So you can take all that into consideration. There, we do have an article, an expanded article about that out on the website. If you go to acera.org, this colored section, this berry colored section right here, is for you all who are getting ready to retire. You're within those 3 years or 3 months or 3 weeks of retirement. So there's things here for you. So if you go to estimate your retirement income, this whole article walks you through getting your Acera pension estimate, getting your Social Security estimate, logging into your 457B account, and calculating expenses if you wanted to do that. So you can walk through that on your own. Okay, the second thing that you may want to take into consideration when choosing your retirement date are those age factor percentage dates. Okay, so remember, I told you that um, if you have not yet reached the maximum age for your tier, every quarter year you age, you will get a higher age factor percentage in the formula for you. Okay, and it's based on your birth date. So, for example, if your birthday is January 15th, April 15th is 1 quarter after your birthday. July 15th is 2 quarters after your birthday. October 15th is 3 quarters after your birthday. So every time you pass one of those days, you age another quarter year for the purposes of Acera calculating your retirement, and you go up one notch in that age factor percentage chart. Okay. So you can see that if you are it if you have not yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier, you're going to want to keep these dates in mind. So let's say that this is your birthday and you're thinking about retiring on July 14th. Well, you can see why you would not want to do that because if you retired on July 15th, you would get the next higher age factor percentage. The same is true with all of the dates. Retire on that day or later, and you go up one notch in the age factor percentage chart. Just by doing that, you increase your retirement allowance when we calculate it by somewhere between 1 to 1.9% just by aging that next quarter year. Okay. And that's baked into the calculation when we calculate your retirement allowance. Okay. And if you have if you're still if your age factors are increasing by looking at this chart. And if you have not yet reached the blue box age for whatever tier you're in, every quarter year that you age, those age factors are still increasing. So you're going to want to be cognizant of those dates, okay? So what I'm trying to tell you is that you probably don't want to retire right before one of these dates because you're missing out on extra money that you would have earned. So don't retire right before one of these dates. Now, what I'm not telling you to do is that you have to, in all cases, retire on past the next quarter year age factor increase date. So if you were going to retire halfway between these, like August 30th, I'm not telling you you need to stick around and work more, work past October 15th to get past the next age factor percentage. You just retire when you need to on August 30th. But I don't want you to retire like on August 7th, October 7th, maybe, or October 8th or 9th or 13th. Because if you just work a little bit past that, you boost your retirement allowance by somewhere between 1 and 1.9%. So keep those dates in mind, okay? And it's based on your birth date, like I said. So it's not if your birth date is not the 15th, it's not the 15th of the month. If your birthday was January 20th, the next date would be April 20th, July 20th, October 20th. So it's based on your birth date. And if your birth date is like the 31st, for example, and 3 months later there is no 31st, your next quarter year would increase on whatever the last day of the month is. Probably the 30th of the month. So that's how that works. Okay. Next item that you may want to consider, next date that you may want to consider when choosing your retirement date, if you're going to retire in the spring, if that's your plan, is the cost of living adjustment date, which is April 1st. Now, the cost of living adjustment, I told you earlier, it's a guaranteed benefit, it's a vested benefit. So when you retire, you will receive annually an increase to your retirement allowance based on how much prices go up in the Bay Area, how much the CPI goes up from December to December in the Bay Area. And that becomes the cost of living adjustment. So if prices go up 5% December to December, then when April 1st comes around, everyone who's in retired status gets the cost of living adjustment for that year, except the law tells us there is a maximum we can pay you each year. For tiers 1 and 3, it's 3%. For tiers 2 and 4, it's 2%. So what if inflation was like 5% in the example that I was giving you? Well, we will save those percentage points for you in a what we sometimes call a COLA bank. And next year, if inflation is not the max, if it's not the, let's say it was 1%, we would give you the 1% inflation, plus we would take a percentage point out of your COLA bank if you had percentage points to get you up to whatever the maximum is. So the bottom line there is that if you've already been retired for a few years, um, you tend to bank percentage points and you tend to get the maximum every year. And on average, I would say that even in your first year, you tend to get the maximum. For example, in early February is when our actuary calculates and tells us what the CPI increase was. This year it's 3%. Okay. So that means that all members who newly retire this year, if they retire on or before April 1st, will immediately get a 3% increase if they're in tiers 1 and 3, or a 2% increase if they're in tiers 2 and 4. And if they're in tiers 2 and 4, they'll not only get the 2% increase, but they'll bank 1 percentage point for years in the future. Okay. Now, the reason I'm telling you about this benefit, this guaranteed benefit, in the context of choosing your retirement date is that sometimes people who are going to retire in the spring are looking at different dates and they're thinking, okay, wait a minute. I get an immediate increase on April 1st if I retire on or before April 1st. Like I'll retire April 1st or the last couple of weeks of March or just somewhere in March, and I'll get that increase on April 1st. And if I had retired on April 2nd or some other time in April or maybe even in May, I would make less money than I would have if I retired on or before April 1st. Huh. And if you're thinking that, you would be absolutely right in a lot of cases, especially like this year when the cost of living adjustment that we're about to pay out is going to be the maximum that we can pay. Which is why March is our biggest retirement month because we're basically taking probably like 3 months worth of retirees who would have retired probably in April and May and March, and they're all retiring in March to get to retire before that April 1st cutoff. Or, you can retire on April 1st and it still counts. So if you are going to retire those months, you may just want to think about retiring on April 1st or before April 1st because we calculate what we do is we calculate your retirement and then because you retired on or before April 1st, we'll calculate the COLA. We'll add the COLA to it immediately. So you'll start getting that increased payment immediately. Okay. Now, if you are retiring at some other point in the year, if that's your plan, um, like maybe you're going to retire in January, or you're going to retire in December, or September, or August. You don't really have to worry about this. There's no timing issue here. So you just retire when you need to. And when April 1st comes around, your retirement allowance will go up by whatever the cost of living adjustment is that we're paying for that year. Okay. So the only timing issue is if you're going to retire in the spring. And then usually what happens after about May is that you've earned more service credit. You'll usually pass another age factor percentage. And then the combination of those will get you a higher payment than you would have had you retired on April 1st. So that discrepancy resolves itself sometime in May or June. Now, what if there is a conflict between the age factor percentage and the COLA? Okay, so this may happen to some people who are planning to retire in the spring. Let's say, for example, you are a member whose age factor percentage is still increasing. You have not yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. You're thinking about retiring in the spring, and you have a birthday, for example, the January 15th birthday example, where your next quarter age will happen after the April 1st COLA date. So you have a dilemma. Should you retire in this example on April 15th or maybe a little bit after? At least retire as of April 15th or after. And if you do that, you'll get the next age factor increase for having aged a quarter year, but you'll miss the cost of living adjustment you would have gotten had you retired on or before April 1st. Or should you retire on April 1st? And in that case, you will miss the age factor increase that you're going to get if you worked another couple of weeks or so and retired on or after April 15th, but you are going to get the cost of living adjustment for that year because you're retiring on April 1st or before. Which one do you do? Well, you probably already know the answer because I already gave you the percentages. What you do is in February, when we post the COLA to our website, so here's our website, acera.org, COLA increase for all retirees. So you click on that, and it's acera.org/COLA. And then you see what the COLA increase is going to be for this year. Okay. If it's the maximum, the 2 or 3%, that is going to beat, likely going to beat the age factor percentage increase. So then you would want to retire on April 1st or before because you would get more money. And we want you to get the maximum amount of money that you have earned. So just go with whatever the bigger number is. Okay. Now you don't have to take my word for this. You can do this yourself. So whatever your scenario is, do two estimates in the benefit estimator in your account. Okay. If you're trying to choose between these. Do one estimate for retiring past on or past the next quarter year age increase. Maybe give it a few days after it just to make sure that gets factored in. So in this example, this person might want to do a benefit estimate for retiring on April 18th. Okay. So you get that estimate. And then you do one for retiring on April 1st or whenever in March you're thinking about retiring. Okay. The second one is going to be bigger. I'm sorry, the April one, April 18th one is going to be bigger than the April 1st one because there's another age factor increase in there. But then what you're going to want to do is take the April 1st one and you're going to want to multiply the benefit estimate by the COLA increase. So for example, take the estimate number and if the COLA is the max, for example, if you're in tier 2 or tier 4 and you're looking at a 2% increase, you would take your estimate no, dollar amount and you multiply that by 1.02. And that would give you the larger amount with the cost of living increase. And you compare that number with the April 15th estimate. And you go with whichever is the bigger number. And that's when you retire. Okay, last two things in choosing your retirement date. The first is coming back to this idea of Acera converting sick leave to service credit. Okay. So remember that if you go straight from active work into retirement, we will convert your unused sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit. It happens automatically, so you don't have to request it or anything. We just do it when we see you have a balance. Um, but all you need to do is make sure that your last day on payroll and your retirement date are 2 consecutive calendar days. Another way to say that is your first day of retirement is the next calendar day after your last day on payroll. Now, your last day on payroll, you don't have to be at work that day. You could be on leave. It could be you could be using up your floating holidays, or you could be using up you could be out sick that day. That's totally fine. Um, but you're on payroll that day, so you are going to get paid for that day. And then the next day should be your retirement date. And there's couple more caveats I want to add to that. Okay. And this is only if you are planning on going straight from active work into retirement. If you're going to stop working and retire at a later date, you don't have to worry about this. You're just going to lose all your sick leave anyway. That's just how it works. So sorry about that. Okay, so if you want us to convert the sick leave to service credit, when you're picking the days, the consecutive days, which days to do, you want to make sure of two things. One is that the day that is your last day on payroll is not a holiday. It's not a public holiday that you would be off work. That it throws things off for some reason. I don't know why. So you wouldn't want to have this last day on payroll to be like the Friday after Thanksgiving. because that's a holiday and it messes things up. So it should be a non-holiday, and that your first day of retirement should be a day where you were scheduled to be work that day, that the previous day. Okay. So let's say, for example, you work like many people Monday through Friday. Your first day of retirement should not be Sunday or Monday because on Sunday and on Monday you are never scheduled to work the day before. So your first day of retirement can be, if you work Monday through Friday, it can be Tuesday through Saturday if you want us to do the sick leave conversion for you. Okay, so just make sure that that's the case. Um, Now, if you are somebody who does not have a regular schedule, perhaps you work in law enforcement or perhaps you work in healthcare, you may want to pick a retirement week. Now, if your retirement is kind of far away, you may want to pick a retirement week. And then when it gets closer to the time and you see what the schedule is, then you can pick your retirement date to be a day after you are scheduled to be at work. And then fill out, put that on your retirement application. And that's how you do it. Okay. So all you do is you just make sure that these are 2 consecutive days. And the way that you do that is this last day on payroll is the day that you write on your letter of resignation to your employer. So when you go to leave, you just write them a letter of resignation, put that date on there saying that's going to be my last day of work. And then this day is the day you write on your retirement application, and that makes them 2 consecutive days. We even have a template on our website. Um, if you go to acera.org/retire, this is going to be the page, and I'll come back to this later. This is going to be the page, the last page that you visit on our website before you retire. This has the information that you need to fill out your electronic retirement application and all the links to the retirement application. And then there's a list of things that you should do after that. Um, and one of those things is to notify your employer in writing of your employment separation date. And there's a little form letter here that we have. You can just plug in your name, your info, and your last day on payroll. There's even a Word version of it here that you can download, and you can just put your name and info in there and send that to your employer to make it easy for you. Okay, so now if you're doing the worksheet, now you can, if you have settled on a projected retirement date based on what I told you, you can put that in. And then if your plan is for us to convert the sick leave to service credit, you know that the separation date has to be the day before that. And so you would put that in here. And that's what you should plan on. There is one question that has been up on the board for a while regarding the sick leave conversion. Uh, do, does it qualify for the 20-year benefit for the medical subsidy? Yes, it does. So the sick leave conversion amount would get you over the 20-year mark for the monthly medical allowance, and I'll talk about that. I'll remind you of that when that topic comes back up. Okay, so applying to retire, next topic. Let's move right into that. Okay. So you've chosen your retirement date, and now it's time to actually do the work to physically retire from Acera. What does that process look like? Okay, we have some steps for you. Here's the retirement application process. Step one, we want you to go through our preparing to retire section on our website. So step one has a bunch of sub steps in it. Sorry about that. What you do is you go to acera.org/prepare, or the way to navigate there is, again, go to acera.org, scroll down here under this ready to retire section, and it's right here, prepare to retire. Okay, now this has 12 different posts on it, and they're in chronological order. So we want you to kind of go in order. And it has some suggested times when you would want to do these things, like how far before retirement. But if your retirement is closer than that, don't worry, you can just do them all now. Okay. So you can see there's 12 things we want you to do here, 12 articles we want you to read. You've already done a bunch of this stuff already, so you're way ahead of the game. We've already verified your retirement eligibility. I explained to you how vacation affects your pension. already. You're attending a pre-retirement seminar right now. Okay. So you've already done a bunch of this stuff. We already talked about choosing your retirement date. Okay. But go through each one of these things, and then I'll come back and I'll talk about these last three steps from the slide. Okay. So that's step one. Go through the preparing to retire section. Step two is to set up a ready to retire counseling session within the 3 to 6 months before your retirement date to fully prepare. Now, the reason we suggest the 3 to 6 months is because we get a lot of calculations going and stuff, and it makes it so that 99% of the time, your first retirement payment is your final is your maximum retirement payment, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So it allows us time to fully prepare for your retirement. So what happens is you go to sarah.org/counseling or on the preparing to retire section, it is the third to last thing that we want you to do in that section. And all you do is you read through the info and then you fill out the form. Okay, so once you fill out the form, you hit submit. One of my colleagues, our retirement counselors, will contact you and they will set up a counseling session for the 3 months before your projected retirement date. Okay, so sometime in that 3 month period, that's when it will be scheduled for. And we do 99% of these on either Zoom or Teams. I think there may be an option for both. Um, but we do 99% of them on video these days just because people prefer that because you don't have to come down to our office, you don't have to get on BART, or you don't have to find parking in downtown Oakland. Um, it's real easy, and your counselor will walk you through all the final things that you need to know and do right leading up to retirement. It's optional, but it's highly recommended. Okay, then your next step is to submit your retirement application. And I believe when your counselor contacts you, they will give you further instructions and they will have you submit your retirement application before the counseling session so that they can talk with you about it and make sure that everything is correct on it. But you're going to be submitting that retirement application within the 90-day period, the 3 months before your projected retirement date. And like I said, those instructions are at acera.org/retire. And that is the last applying to retire. That is the last step on the preparing to retire page. Okay. And so they will guide you to going to that. There are some sub steps on that page just to make sure that you've done everything, which you have. It explains the 5 options in detail, which I'm about to do for you. And then you have your electronic retirement packet, and your counselor will have you go ahead and fill out all of these forms. They're DocuSign forms. You do them all online. You don't have to get pen and ink or printers or scanners involved. You just submit it all in DocuSign. The retirement application, medical enrollment forms, vision, dental, other pertinent forms and information. Okay. That's step 3. On your retirement application, you are going to be doing a few different things. Okay. You are going to be specifying your retirement date. You're going to be selecting one of 5 retirement allowance options. I'll walk you through those in just a minute. You're going to be nominating a beneficiary or beneficiaries for death benefits. And you're going to consider joining a retiree association. Okay, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. So, you fill out your application, you submit it to Acera with your retirement date. We log that in our database. We log your retirement date in our database. And then once that date passes, you are retired. It is going to be amazing. You have earned it. You have spent many years working for the residents of Alameda County, doing public service for us, and we really appreciate you and we really appreciate the hard work that you've put in. You've earned your retirement. So we are really excited for you to retire. That's like our favorite thing. That's why I like to help you through it. Okay, so Now that you know when to submit your ready to retire counseling form, all you need to do is take your projected retirement date, subtract 6 months, put that in the worksheet. But don't stop there. Get out your phone or whatever device you use to send yourself reminders, or if you use a paper calendar, put it on there for reminders. Set yourself a reminder 6 months before your projected retirement date. Fill out this counseling form. That way you won't forget. Okay, now regarding the retiree associations, on your retirement application, there's gonna be a checkbox for each one of these associations. So there's two in Alameda County. These are entirely associations of retired county employees. Okay, so um, they are ACRE, which stands for the Alameda County Retired Employees. They are affiliated with SEIU Local 1021. The dues are an incredibly affordable $3 per month. There's also REAC. REAC stands for Retired Employees of Alameda County. They're unaffiliated. The dues are an incredibly cheap $2 per month. They do a lot of things for you. Their main thing that they do is they advocate for retirees to Acera. So sometimes retirees might have some issues, and maybe they are looking for another avenue to communicate with Acera besides communicating directly with us, which we really love when you communicate any issues that you're having directly with us, but also these associations advocate for you in those scenarios. So you can talk to them as well. And they publish newsletters, they hold social events. Acre has a holiday luncheon, REAC has a spring and fall luncheon. So you can get together with your former colleagues or meet new friends who are also former public employees. And like I said, the dues are super cheap. And if you check the boxes, you can sign up for either one or both. If you check the boxes, we'll take the dues out of your retirement check for you and send it over to REAC and Acre. So it's nice and easy. You don't have to think about it. And then you can participate in their social events and receive their newsletters. And so basically, they advocate for you. I attend all of their board meetings because I like to know what's going on with our retirees and get all of the different ways that to hear about any news. They attend all of our board meetings, so we have a really close relationship with them. If you don't select the boxes on your retirement application, you can join later as well. So you have other opportunities. Okay, so what can you expect in your first retirement check? I guess I should say, when can you expect your first retirement check? You can expect it 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer's paycheck. And like I was saying earlier, 99% of the time these days, your first payment is 100% payment. There is an occasional time where there's like missing documentation or something, and we have to issue 80% payments, which is an estimated 80% payment while we get that stuff resolved. And then once we get it resolved, we'll start issuing your 100% payments and any retro payments that we need to issue you. So you get your full retirement. Okay, now at this point, I'm going to walk you through each one of the 5 retirement allowance options. So you're going to select one of these on your retirement application, and you cannot choose a different one later if you change your mind. So once you retire, your option is permanent. So it's good to know what each one of these options do. Now, there is one scenario where if you are applying for a disability retirement, I think some people will apply for the regular retirement, also known as the service retirement, while they are also applying for the disability retirement to start getting payments so they can pay for their life while the disability process is going through. It can take like a year. And if they are awarded a disability retirement, I think they can choose a different option than what they chose for the regular retirement, but you would want to check with your disability retirement counselor on that if you do go through that process. And we have a whole bunch of information about disability retirement at acera.org/disability. Let me just let me just make sure I'm giving you the right link. acera.org/disability. Yes. Okay. Okay, so let me walk you through these 5 retirement allowance options. You can see that there's the unmodified option and options 1 through 4. For each one of the options, I'm going to throw this wall of text at you. But the top, and I'm gonna walk you through it, okay? So you'll understand everything that's going on in here. The top is going to be the title of the option. The top of the table is going to tell you about your retirement allowance while you are an Acera retiree. The bottom information in the table is going to talk about the death benefits available to your beneficiary or beneficiaries after your death. Okay. So a beneficiary, that word just means somebody who gets a benefit, and your Acera beneficiary is the person that you designate to receive your death benefits after your death. Okay. And so the assumption with all of these tables is that you choose the option, you retire, you start receiving the allowance, and then you die at some point in retirement, and then your beneficiaries would be eligible for these options. So these are all post-retirement death benefits. We do offer death benefits should you die before retirement. That rarely happens. But if you want to learn more about that, we do have a page with all the death benefits at acera.org/death. Okay, so let me walk you through the first option, the unmodified option. The subtitle here is 60% to beneficiary. Okay, this one, the unmodified option, the vast majority of our members choose this because it pays the highest retirement allowance of any of the options while you are a living Acera retiree. Okay, then it's subtitled 60% to beneficiary because after your death, what it does is it pays a 60% monthly continuance to a qualifying beneficiary. Now, continuance, that word just means a continuing monthly payment. So you're getting your monthly retirement allowance every month. Then, after your death, the continuance is a continuing monthly payment. And in this case, it's 60% of whatever your retirement allowance was at the time of your death, including the cost of living adjustments that you had received. That is only available to a spouse, state registered domestic partner, or Alameda County domestic partner, or I actually learned recently Marin County domestic partner as well. If you have your domestic partner registered there. Um, in if your continuance beneficiary is one of those people, then they would receive a lifetime continuance, which means they would get the monthly continuance every month for the rest of their life, as long as you married them or you registered them at least 1 year before you retired. Okay. So you have to do that at least 1 year before retirement in order for them to qualify as your continuance beneficiary. And you're naming this continuance beneficiary on your retirement application. Okay, so that's how we know that you're naming them for a continuance. Now, if you don't have a spouse or domestic partner, but you have a minor child or minor children, you can name them for the 60% monthly continuance, but it's a temporary benefit. It's not a lifetime benefit. It stops at age 18 when they reach age 18, or it can continue until age 22 as long as they are enrolled in a full-time accredited school as a full-time student, um, unless they get married or they register a domestic partner with the state, and then it will stop at that point. Now, if you want to choose the unmodified option to get the maximum retirement allowance, and you don't have a spouse, domestic partner, or minor children, you can still choose the unmodified option. That's perfectly fine. Many people do that. And you can even name a beneficiary or multiple beneficiaries, but not for a continuance because it has to be one of these people. So any beneficiary you name who is not one of these people would be eligible for a one-time payment, and it's a lump sum. So they call it lump sum because it's a lump sum all paid all at once. And what they would receive is basically a refund of your employee contribution account. And what's going to be left in there is all of the employee contributions that you paid in to your Acera account over the years, plus all the interest that has accrued on top of those contributions. Whenever the fund earns interest, we put that interest in your contribution account, minus all of the retirement allowance options that we paid you as a living Acera retiree. So one fact about that I like to point out is that if you and this happens in most cases, and I would hope this would happen for you, that you have a much longer retirement than 3 to 5 years, that you live much longer than 3 to 5 years after retirement. If if that's the case, then there will be no balance left for this lump sum beneficiary in your account, because that's how long it takes us to pay out the employee contribution account to you in retirement allowance payments. Now, I like to I like to point out a side note about that. What that means is kind of amazing. That means that everything that you paid into Acera throughout your entire career, plus all the interest, we're gonna basically give you back in your retirement allowance payments every month, and it's only gonna take 3 to 5 years to give all that money back to you. And then let's say that you have a long retirement, you live another, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years. After that, it's this you're just going to still get paid every month for the rest of your life, even though everything that you paid in has been given back to you. And we're able to do that because it's a defined benefit pension plan, and your employer contributions pay for part of it, but we have invested all of that money on a group basis for many years and earned a significant amount of interest, and it's the interest that pays 3/4 of your lifetime uh, retirement allowance on average. So it's a really beautiful thing to be able to participate in a defined benefit pension plan. Okay, so that is an aside. Back to the unmodified option. There would be some other smaller payments, even if you have a lump sum beneficiary named and you don't have any money left in your account. There are some other payments, which would include a partial month of your retirement allowance that we have not paid to you yet at the time of your death, because usually people will pass away sometime in, halfway through the month. So they would get that. If you sign up for our healthcare plans, you pay our group plans, you pay those premiums a month in advance. So we would refund that advance premium. That there's the $1,000 lump sum death benefit. And there may be one other category that I'm forgetting about. So there would be a small amount to pay to your lump sum beneficiary. Okay, one more thing I want to say, and I spend the most time on the unmodified option. The other ones will be fairly quick. The other thing I want to say about the unmodified option is that there is a scenario where you go to retire, you have a qualifying beneficiary for a continuance, like a spouse or domestic partner. You nominate them as your continuance beneficiary, you retire, and then your continuance beneficiary dies before you do. So in that case, you can name in retirement a new beneficiary, but not for a continuance. You can only name lump sum beneficiaries after retirement. So if you named a new beneficiary, they'd be eligible for those lump sum payments that I was talking about. And that's just because of the code sections that the county has adopted for Acera. Another scenario is that you don't have a continuance beneficiary at the time of retirement, but then you retire and then you get married after you retire. You can name your new spouse or state registered domestic partner as a beneficiary, but again, only for lump sum payments. So that's the unmodified option. Moving on to option one. Option one is the only one of the 5 options that never pays a continuance to anyone ever. That's not an option in option one. If you want to pay continuance, you choose a different option. What this does is it tries to leave a larger lump sum to the beneficiary. It extends the time that there's a balance left in your employee contribution account. Instead of 3 to 5 years, it's 10 to 12 years. So if you were to die within the first 10 to 12 years, there would still be a balance left in your employee contribution account to pay out as a lump sum to your beneficiary. You can name one person or you can name multiple people. Now, that's what it does for your beneficiary. For you, it pays a little bit less than the unmodified option. So you'll see when you run your retirement allowance estimate in the member portal on the website, you'll see that the unmodified option, it might pay you like $5 less or $10 or $20 less than the unmodified option per month. And so what the people who would be interested in option one are the people who are interested in the unmodified option, but they don't have a continuance beneficiary and they want to they're okay with that slight reduction to the retirement allowance because they want to trade that for um, the possibility that there would be a larger lump sum left for the lump sum beneficiary should they die in that first 10 to 12 years. So that's option one. Option number two. This is subtitled 100% to beneficiary. This does two main things. Okay. It makes it so that instead of your beneficiary getting a 60% lifetime continuance, they get 100%. I'm sorry, a 60% continuance. They get 100% continuance. So whatever your retirement allowance was when you retired, your beneficiary would get 100% of that amount. And the second thing it does is it opens up who you can name as a beneficiary for a lifetime continuance to anyone. Anyone you can name as a beneficiary for lifetime continuance. So under the unmodified option, you can only name these people: spouse, domestic partner, minor children. If you have an adult child, you can't name them for a continuance, but you can do that with option two, and in fact, options three and four as well. And so they would get a lifetime continuance. Now, the retirement for your retirement allowance while you're still living and you're a SARA retiree, it pays less than the unmodified option, as do all of the options one through four. But the amount less is calculated based on who you name as a beneficiary and their life expectancy. If they are significantly younger than you, we expect to pay them, based on our actuarial life expectancy tables, more. So we're going to pay you less, and that is baked into the calculation at the time of retirement. So when you retire, we are already calculating that reduction. Okay. So you're getting paid less from the beginning. And then when after your death, your beneficiary would get that 100% monthly continuance, but it would be, of that lesser amount. If your beneficiary is not your spouse and they're more than 10 years younger than you, we actually may not be able to pay 100% monthly continuance based on IRS rules. It might be something less. It might be like 96% or 87% or something. There's this this IRS calculation. It's this very arcane thing. To get there, there's a shortcut. If you go to acera.org and you type in if you type in acera.org/non-spouse, there's this shortcut that tells you how to do the IRS calculation. It's very weird. I don't get it. I don't get what they're trying to do here. But you can see that there's a table after you do the calculation that shows you what the maximum would be. We're trying to work this into our benefit estimate within the next few months. We're upgrading that so you won't have to go to that website to figure that out. Okay, so let me see. Is that everything I want to say about option two? Okay, one more thing. If you choose option two, you choose your continuance beneficiary, you retire, and then your beneficiary dies before you do. We do not recalculate your retirement allowance. So your benefit does not increase just because your beneficiary did not live out their actuarial life expectancy. That's just the way the law is written. And then again, you can name a new beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. Okay, and one thing that I like to point out here, options two and three, you can only name one beneficiary. Option four is when we get to there, is where you can name more than one beneficiary for a continuance. Okay, option three is the exact same as option two, except it pays 50% to the beneficiary, but it still allows you to name anyone for a lifetime continuance, even adult children. This is going to pay you more than option two because it pays the beneficiary less. That IRS thing does not apply because if you look at the IRS table, the maximum reduction is 52%, and this pays 50%. So What this does is whatever your retirement allowance was at the time that you die in retirement, this pays 50% of that to your beneficiary for the rest of their life. One person. And all the same rules apply as option two. Okay, and then before I move on to option four, I'm going to go back to option one because somebody has a question. For option one, the question is, what does it mean that no balance is left if you retire greater than 10 to 12 years? What it means is that um, we, so you have paid in to Acera through your employee contributions into an individual account that we have for you, your employee contribution account, and we've posted interest to that account over the years, and we will continue to do so every time that money earns interest. Okay. So there's this amount of money sitting there. Now, when you retire, when everyone retires, the first account that we start paying you your retirement allowance out of is that employee contribution account. Okay. So every month when we give you your retirement allowance, that account will start dwindling by the amount of the retirement allowance each month. Okay. So it this option one, the account dwindles at a slower pace than under the unmodified option. So there's if you die within the first 3 to 5 years, there's a balance left. For the option one, if you were to die within the first 10 to 12 years, there would be a balance left, meaning when we make your retirement allowance payments to you, we have not finished, we have not fully depleted your account when we've paid out your retirement allowance amounts to you out of that account. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't. And kind of the bottom line there is that if you were to if you choose option one, and go ahead if you have any follow-ups, go ahead and type those into the Q&A. If you choose option one and you were to die within the first 10 to 12 years after retirement, there would be a balance left over to pay out to your lump sum beneficiary. If you died after that initial 10 to 12 year period, like you died 15 years after retirement, we would have exhausted that account entirely. So there would be no employee contributions and interest to pay out to that lump sum beneficiary. But as I was saying before, there's some other amounts. There's a $1,000 lump sum benefit. There's probably going to be a partial month of your retirement allowance. And then any prepaid insurance premiums, we would refund those. Okay, so we did option, and then there's a question, can you assign a beneficiary who is outside of the USA? Um, I believe you can. I don't think that there's any reason that you cannot do that. And we have many um, I've never heard of people not being able to do that. And I can't think of a reason why you would not be able to do that. I know that we cannot pay your retirement allowance while you're living into a foreign bank account. But we can pay. I don't see any reason why we can't pay an international um, beneficiary. So I would, whenever you work with your counselor, I would verify that with them just to make sure. But it would be very strange if that was the case. Or if you want to know right now, you can contact us at acera.org/contact. You can give us a call or you can send us an email. I'll type that web address in. You're welcome. And when you go to acera.org/contact, and you try to send us an email, it's gonna divert you into your member direct account into your account on our website. Um, so you're gonna need to, if you haven't enrolled in that yet, you're gonna need to enroll before you can email us because we changed that. Let me see, that would have been back in September, I think, to keep our email communications more secure with our members because there's a lot of financial info being sent around, and members were like emailing us their social security number and email, just regular email. While we have very stringent security measures on everything that we do, it's way more secure to do it inside the member portal. And somebody's asking, does the retirement check come at the end of each month? Yes, it's paid on the last business day of each month. And you can see that out on our website. If you go under retirees, your retirement allowance, you can see all of the payable retirement allowance payable dates for whatever year we're in. Okay, the final option, option 4. This gives you a lot of latitude to specify an amount that you want to pay to one or more beneficiaries. Okay. So options 2 and 3 only allow you to name one beneficiary and it's a fixed percentage, 100% or 50%. Under option 4, you could leave like a 20% continuance to one person, or you could leave two 10% continuances to two people. Um, so, uh, uh, so you have a lot of different leeway in what you can do here. Now, if you're naming more than one person, okay. So one thing that I want to point out here is that IRS thing still applies. So if you're naming one person who is a non-spouse and who's more than 10 years younger than you, there's probably going to be a limit. We can't pay the 100% continuance, so it's going to be something less than that. Maybe we'll tell you that you can pay 80%. Okay. Now, if you were to name two beneficiaries, that calculation will be based on the youngest beneficiary. Okay, so let's say that the maximum amount of a continuance we're telling you is that you can leave 80%. Then we give you the option of splitting that 80% among the beneficiaries in whatever proportion you want. So you could leave 50-50 of the 80% to those two continuances, like two adult children, for example. So essentially, they would get like 40% and 40% of your retirement allowance. Um, this is another thing that we're working on upgrading our benefit estimator because currently the benefit estimator doesn't give you the chance to get estimates for option 4. So you have to work with your counselor to get estimates for option 4 if you're interested in that. But we will be upgrading that within probably the next few months. I've been working on that. That's like my main project right now. And somebody's asking if I leave less than 40% to my beneficiary, will it increase my monthly pension under option 4? Yes. So that is a really good point to make. And I do like to make that point because people have this really beautiful idea that they want to leave a lifetime continuance to an adult child or multiple adult children with option 4. And that is a really beautiful gift to give your adult children. But another really beautiful gift to give them is your financial solvency for the rest of your life so that they don't have to worry about you. They don't have to worry about that whether you have enough income in retirement. If you are set, then that takes a lot of stress off them, and that's a beautiful gift. So whenever you're looking at your options and you're thinking about options 2, 3, and 4, and if you're going to name somebody who's a non-spouse, um, who that or whoever you're going to name, just look at the how much less it's paying in your retirement allowance. Make sure that whatever it's telling you your retirement allowance is going to be is enough for you to live on, uh, to maintain your standard of living at least. So just make sure about that. And one of the ways that you can do that is like this attendee is pointing out is that like for option 4, like let's say that you look at you have an adult child and you go, okay, what if I name them as my beneficiary for lifetime continuance? Well, in this 100% example, we're going to significantly reduce your retirement allowance. So you look at that one and you go, oh no, I can't take that big of a cut. And then you look at option 3, 50% to that adult child, and you look at your retirement allowance and you're like, oh, you're still like, oh no, I can't live on that. You move on to option four. If you still want to leave something to them, you could reduce it even further. You could go like 30%, 20%, 10% just to see, because the less we pay the beneficiary, the more we're going to pay you. And again, all of that calculation is baked in when we calculate your retirement at the time that you retire. Okay. So that is a really good point to make, that um, the less you leave the beneficiary for options two, three, and four, the more your retirement allowance is going to be. And then somebody's asking which options can give money to an adult child. If you're trying to leave a continuance to an adult child, the only options that you would be able to pick are two, three, and four. Okay. Option two is 100% continuance. Option three is a 50% continuance. Option four is a percentage that you choose. If you're trying to leave a lump sum to an adult child, you can pick any of the options. But in that case, you would probably want to pick option one because it would give you the highest retirement allowance. Or you could pick the unmodified option. It would give you the highest retirement allowance while trying to leave the most lump sum to the adult child. But really, then the unmodified option gives you the highest retirement allowance, and then you can still name an adult child as a lump sum beneficiary. And again, that's why the vast majority of people pick the unmodified option, because it pays you the highest as an NESARA retiree. Okay, so going to the retirement benefit estimate again, I just want to show you the screenshot one more time. Now that we have explored all of the options, so just to zoom in here again on the estimated monthly benefit table, now that you understand them, it will probably make more sense. If you look at your monthly benefit column, you, the member, you'll note that when you run your estimate, the unmodified option is going to be the biggest number on the page. It pays the most of all of the options. You'll notice option two is going to be a little bit less than the unmodified option. In this example, it is, let me see, $23 less about than the unmodified option. You'll note that for the unmodified option, the beneficiary's continuance is going to be 60% of the unmodified option if you sit down and do the math. You'll note for option two, this is going to be the lowest. Well, actually, let me think about that. It might not be. It all depends on who you name as your beneficiary. When you're plugging in the beneficiary into the table, into the worksheet, um, the beneficiary's age is taken into account when calculating options two and three. So that could affect what the member monthly benefit is. In any case, it's never going to be more than the unmodified option. And you'll note that the member monthly benefit and the beneficiary continuance is the exact same under option two because it pays 100%. And you'll note for option three that the beneficiary benefit continuance is half of option three. And you'll see that option three pays more than option two because it pays the beneficiary less. So it all makes sense. And again, I was saying that in the next few months we'll get this upgraded so that you can do option four estimates. In the meantime, you should check with your counselor when you do your counseling session if you want estimates for option four. Okay, moving on to the next section. Let's talk about some other benefits. We talked a lot about guaranteed benefits, vested benefits, also known as guaranteed benefits. So those again are the lifetime monthly retirement allowance, also known as the pension or the pension benefit. Those are the uh, cost of living adjustment and the $1,000 lump sum death benefit. And additionally, you can consider the death benefits that go with whatever any continuance benefits or that go with or any lump sum benefit, death benefits that go with whatever option you selected as also a guaranteed benefit. Okay. So let's talk about some non-guaranteed benefits. The reason that these are not guaranteed is these are extra additional benefits paid on top of the guaranteed benefits if you're eligible for them. The reason these exist is because back in 1984, Alameda County decided that their retirees needed more money to pay for things like healthcare and retirement. And so they started this reserve fund under the state code section that ACERA administers. So we operate at ACERA, our Board of Retirement operates this reserve fund called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve. That is this big pot of money that's used to pay these extra non-guaranteed benefits. Okay. Now, the reason that they're not guaranteed is because the benefits are dependent on there being money in this reserve fund. So the Board of Retirement's job is to monitor the reserve fund. We pay an actuary to do that, and they monitor how much is being paid out every year, how much is coming in every year, and their goal is making sure the fund stays sustainable into the future so they can continue offering these benefits to our retirees in perpetuity. Now, they might make adjustments to the benefits or the qualifications. They do that periodically just to tweak it so that the fund stays sustainable. Currently, there is $1.2 billion in this fund. It's very sustainable. If you want to read more about it, it's at acera.org/SRBR. You can see a chart, a sustainability chart there. But one of the things that they do to keep it sustainable is they limit who can get the healthcare benefits by having a minimum amount of ACERA service credit to qualify for the benefits. Okay. So their rule is that starting at 10 years of ACERA service credit, you start to qualify for the healthcare subsidies. And the subsidies are basically a payment to you on top of your pension that help you pay for the healthcare that you enroll in through ACERA, if you enroll in the healthcare through ACERA. Okay. So it starts at 10 years. And that's the case for the first level of the medical subsidy, known as the monthly medical allowance. Also, the dental subsidy, vision subsidy, Medicare subsidy, those are all available at 10 years of ACERA service credit. If you stick around and you earn 15 years or 20 years of ACERA service credit, you get a higher medical subsidy. And somebody initially had a question at the beginning of the webinar about whether the sick leave conversion gets you over the amount of years that you need to qualify for these. And the answer is yes, it does. I checked with my colleagues on the break time, and it does count. So if you retired with 19.99 years of service credit and you went straight from active work into retirement and you had a bunch of sick leave on the books that got you over the 20-year mark, that would allow you to qualify for the 20-year subsidy for the monthly medical allowance. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Now, just to note, this is ACERA service credit only. Reciprocal service credit does not count. So that's just the board's rule. If you have 10 years combined, but with some other agency, that doesn't get you over the 10-year mark. It has to be 10 years of ACERA service credit. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through each one of these subsidies and the different health care plans that we offer. And I'll talk about the supplemental cost of living adjustment also. So let's get started on that. First off, we have the monthly medical allowance, also known as MMA. What this does is when you go to retire and you retire, your employer is not going to want you on their health plan anymore. You can stay on the plan if you want through the federal COBRA law for like 18 to 36 months, I think, but it's going to be expensive because they're not going to subsidize it. Okay. What ACERA will do when you go to retire is we give you the opportunity to enroll straight away into medical insurance, dental insurance, and vision insurance through us. We offer plans for all of those plan options. And we will get you right into those plans with no gap in coverage So if you want to do it this way on your first day of retirement, you will be enrolled in our plans. And if you enroll in an Acera sponsored medical plan and you qualify for the monthly medical allowance, you can use that to pay for the cost, offset the cost of being enrolled in Acera sponsored retiree medical plans, but not outside plans. So if you go somewhere else, like on the public marketplace and get your own insurance, we can't pay you the monthly medical allowance. Okay. And again, this is a non-guaranteed benefit. So if you enroll in one of our group plan options, it will help you offset the cost of your monthly premiums. If you enroll in one of our individual plan options, it will not only help you offset the cost of your premiums, but also copays, deductibles if you sign up for a plan with a deductible, and any IRS approved medical expenses. Okay. The amount of the monthly medical allowance is a dollar amount set annually by Acera's Board of Retirement. If you sign up for a plan that costs more than what the monthly medical allowance is, you're responsible for paying the difference, for paying any of the costs exceeding the amount of the monthly medical allowance. And the subsidy is not available for anyone besides you, the retiree. Okay. Now you can enroll your plus one or your family, like normal in healthcare plans. Um, but there's no subsidy for them, and there's an increased premium amount for having your additional family members enrolled. Okay, so here are the 2026 monthly medical allowance amounts. If you retire from Acera with at least 20 years of service credit, you're eligible for the full monthly medical allowance, which in 2026 is $687.21 per month. If you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit when you retire, it's $515.41 per month. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit when you retire, it's $343.61 per month. Okay. So now that you've seen the subsidy amounts, kind of keep those in your mind, whichever one might apply to you. And then I'm going to show you the medical plans and what the premiums are so you can see how much of the plan the monthly medical allowance will pay for. And I'll just say that if you're not yet Medicare eligible, it's not going to pay for the whole thing in any case, even if you have 20 years. Okay. So, just as sort of a side note, our open enrollment at Acera is the entire month of November. So we have a good long open enrollment. It's the entire month of November. So once you retire, at retirement, we'll get you right into our plans, like I said. Okay, so retirement is a qualifying event. You can join mid-year whenever you retire within the 30-day period after your retirement. Okay, then November rolls around, and it's much like your active member open enrollment, except longer because ours is an entire month. It's the month of November, and that's your opportunity to change plans. Now, we have for medical plans, we kind of have two categories, two columns here in this table. And it's dependent on whether or not you are Medicare eligible yet. Now, everyone becomes Medicare eligible in the US at age 65. There are certain qualifying conditions that get you eligible prior to that. You can check out that info on our Medicare page, acera.org/Medicare. But generally, once you hit 65, you're Medicare eligible. So if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you're going to be looking at these plan options from Acera. There's two group plans and then individual plan options. For Medicare eligible people, uh, there's one group plan option and then individual plan options through VA benefits. Okay. So what I'm going to do is walk you through these plans. I'm going to talk about the group plans first, non-Medicare, then the Medicare group plan, and then I'll talk about the individual VA benefits plans together because it's more efficient that way. So let's start off with the non-Medicare eligible um, group plans. I'm just going to show you the premiums. The full plan details are in our annual enrollment guide that we publish every year at acera.org/guide. It's a 36-page guide. This is the PDF version. So here are the non-Medicare group plan costs for 2026. Okay. These are for in these service areas only: San Francisco Bay, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for the Kaiser Plan, Santa Cruz. Okay. Now you can see that the premiums for the self, the Kaiser Plan is currently the least expensive one at $1,133.80 just for the self premium. So if you think about the 20-year monthly medical allowance, which was I think 680, what was it? 687. So you end up paying, yeah, it's almost 714. So that probably pays for about 60 to 65% of the full premium just for the self, and then you would end up paying the rest. You can enroll self plus one in family. There's also the United Healthcare Signature Value HMO, a little bit more expensive, kind of a lot more expensive. The reason that these are called group plans is that the county negotiates this for us. You'll note it's the same plans that Alameda County has, because the retired members are blended in with the active members, and so they negotiate the whole thing, and then that's why it's the same plans. So if you live in the group plan service areas, these are your two options. Okay, now just as a side note, if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, okay, the way it works is that here's a very basic illustration of your SARA check stub. You have your gross pay in this example, and then you have deductions. So if you were to sign up for the Kaiser HMO, you would see 133.80 come out of your check. That's the self premium amount. Okay, if you sign up for just self. And then if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, at the 20-year level, we would put back into your check the 687.21 monthly medical allowance. And then you end up paying the difference, which in this case, your net pay would be $3,553. Now, this is just a basic example. In your actual check stub, you'll see other deductions. If you sign up for vision and dental, you'll see those. If you're eligible for those subsidies, you'll see those. If you sign up for the retiree associations, you'll see those come out. You'll also see tax withholding come out of your check because you will owe income taxes on your retirement payments because you paid into a SARA on a tax deferred basis. So you're going to owe taxes on the payments out of the system. One more thing I want to point out is that all of the subsidies that we offer, like the monthly medical allowance, when they go into your check, this is not taxable income. We have a letter from the IRS and we have all the accounting in place so that none of these subsidies are considered taxable income, so you don't have to pay income taxes on that part of what goes into your check. Okay, so those are the two group plan options for if you're not yet Medicare eligible. Now, once you hit 65 and you become Medicare eligible, you enroll in Medicare. There's various parts to Medicare. There's Medicare Part A, which is hospitalization coverage. Medicare Part B is in Bravo, which is doctor's visits, coverage for doctor's visits. Medicare Part D, as in Delta, which is prescription drug coverage. Okay. Now, when you hit 65, you could just take Medicare, plain Medicare, and you don't have to enroll in one of Acera's plan options. If you do that, we would not pay you the monthly medical allowance, but you would get to have the just plain Medicare. Some people want more coverage than that, though, and which is why you may want to choose an additional plan. This is the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan, and it provides a higher level of coverage than Medicare alone. So that's why people enroll in coverage through insurance companies once they're Medicare eligible because they get a higher level of coverage. So Medicare pays most of the cost of the coverage, and then what happens is you pay for a little bit. The premium for the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan for the self only is $395.05, much cheaper than the $1,133 non-Medicare plan, and it's because the federal government is paying most of the cost. Okay. Now, what I've done in this slide is I have showed you the different premiums depending on different family member combinations that you would pay. And then I've included a row here for the 20-year monthly medical allowance if you retired from Acera with at least 20 years of service credit. And you may be wondering why the monthly medical allowance is only 398.05, even though you pay 20 years when I told you it was 687.21. Well, the reason for that is because another one of the board's rules to keep the reserve fund sustainable is the monthly medical allowance only pays up to the premium amount of the group plans. So if your monthly medical allowance is more than the premium, then it stops. It becomes the premium amount. The good news there is you end up paying zero out of pocket. Even if you have 15 or more years. I think the 15-year amount was 515, which is still well above the 398. So even if you have 15 years of Acera service credit, and you signed up for the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan, it would cost you zero for yourself. So because it's a zero out of pocket, in that case, if you have at least the 15 years of Acera service credit and it gives you a higher level of coverage, I would think that you would want to go ahead and sign up for this to get more coverage than plain old Medicare alone. Okay, so that would be the reason to do this. Okay, now let me see if there's anything else I want to point out about this. Okay, yeah, it's also the same service areas. It might be slightly different adjustments around the edges, but it's the same general service areas as the non-Medicare group plan. Okay, now that I've told you about the group plan options, let me tell you about the individual plan options through Via Benefits. Okay. First off, let me explain who can enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan. So currently, the Board of Retirement, Acera's Board of Retirement's rules are that if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you can enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan if you live in the US, because that's where all the plan options are, but you have to live outside the Acera group plan service areas. So if you were to live in these service areas, you have to pick one of these group plans. If you don't live in the service areas, then you can choose an individual plan. That rule may change in the next few months. So this is something new that the board is looking at. Um, so they already had a discussion about this in February. It looks like they're going to have a further discussion about this in April. So they may take action on this in April. And they may expand the ability of people who are not yet Medicare eligible to enroll in these individual Via Benefits plans to anyone in any if you live anywhere in the U.S., even if it's in the group plan service area. So we'll see if that happens. If you want to advocate for that, um, there's always a public comment part of every meeting, and you would be looking at the retirees committee meeting where they're going to discuss this. And that would be on April 1st at 9:30 a.m. Is when that meeting is going to be. It's on Zoom. You don't have to be there in person. They always ask, is there anyone from the public that has a public comment? And they always like to hear from Acera members. And hardly any Acera members ever show up to make public comments at the meetings. So they're always listening when a member shows up to advocate for something. Okay, so that may change, but for right now, you have to live in the U.S. but outside the service group service plan areas. Okay, then if you're Medicare eligible, the group plan service area thing doesn't apply. You just have to live in the US and you have to go ahead and enroll in Medicare. Once you're enrolled in Medicare, that gives you the opportunity to enroll in a plan through an insurance company that gives you the higher level of coverage than Medicare alone. So you have to enroll in Medicare and then enroll in the plan that gives you the higher level of coverage. So what is Via Benefits? What is this company? Well, they call themselves a private health insurance exchange. They're basically a massive insurance broker. They contract with 100 or more insurance companies. They offer thousands of different plans. from those insurance companies. Basically, what they are doing is they're a facilitator that helps match you with a plan that's right for you. So you can call them, and if you call them, you'll talk to a non-biased benefit advisor that's salaried and non-commissioned. They'll help you narrow down the plans. You can do it online. They have a very robust online tool that will help you narrow down the plans with lots of filters that you can filter out things. And basically, you tell them either on the telephone or online where you live or where you're going to live, what level of coverage you want, how much you want to spend. You can even narrow it down by the doctors that you want to visit, what prescription drugs you need to take, and they'll help find the plan that's the lowest cost for the highest level of coverage that you're looking for. And then you can choose among those plans. For those plans, the premiums are all dependent on the plan. And for those plans, when you enroll in one, the monthly medical allowance not only pays for the monthly premium, but it will also pay for any deductible if you sign up for a deductible plan, also copays and IRS approved medical expenses. And the monthly medical allowance is paid to you a little bit differently than the group plans. Okay, so here's a kind of crude illustration of how that works. So here's a Sarah, and let's say that you are eligible for the monthly medical allowance because you have at least the 10, 15, or 20 years of service credit when you retire. Okay, so um, what Sarah is going to do is let's say that you sign up through an individual plan through Via Benefits, okay, and you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance. Well, Sarah will send your monthly medical allowance dollars over to Via Benefits, and they will deposit it into this health reimbursement account for you, okay, that they administer. So they keep it's like this account that keeps your monthly medical allowance dollars. And that's one of the things that we pay them to do is administer those accounts. Okay, then they facilitate you signing up for insurance directly with an insurance company. So you start paying that insurance company monthly premiums directly. And then now that you have insurance, you're probably going to go visit the doctor. There's probably going to be a copay. So you pay the doctor a copay. So you're out some money in both cases. You submit reimbursement claims back to Via Benefits, and they will pay you those dollars that they're saving for you, those monthly medical allowance dollars, back to your bank account to reimburse you. And that's how it works. They have an app and they have a website that does all this, and they set this stuff up for you electronically, and the premiums will be recurring electronically automatically. So it's kind of like when you sign up for automatic bill pay with your credit card or automatic, the monthly payment of your credit card. It all happens automatically, so you can set all that stuff up. And then the only reimbursements that you'll have to do is if you are trying to get reimbursed for copays. Okay, so this is another thing that may change in April because this is another thing that the Board of Retirement is discussing. Um, for many years, while we have been offering these Via Benefits plans, for the people who are enrolled in the Medicare plans through Via Benefits, because the plans have been so inexpensive, um, the board has a lower set of monthly medical allowance amounts available for the Medicare enrollees in those Via Benefits plans. And so this is the chart of those. But like I said, this may change in April. They've already started discussing this in February, and at that same board meeting, that same retirees committee meeting in April, this may change as well. So they may increase this to be level with the other monthly medical allowance amounts. So we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so that's the medical coverage and the medical subsidies. Let's move on to dental. So when you retire from a Sarah and you want dental coverage through us, we offer you two different plan options to enroll in, Delta Dental PPO and Delta Care USA. The way this works is that if you retire from a Sarah and you have at least 10 years of a Sarah service credit when you retire or a service-connected disability retirement, you have to enroll in one of these, but it doesn't cost you anything. The self premium and the subsidy are the same. So, for example, if you enrolled in Delta Dental PPO and you had at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you would see 5435 come out of your check and you would see 5435 go back into your check. And so you pay zero. Now you can enroll Self Plus One and you would just pay the difference between the Self Plus One premium and the subsidy, or family, same thing. Delta Care USA is a little bit different plan. It's California only. Delta Dental PPO is nationwide. And again, the plan details are at in our guide at acera.org/guide. Um, Now, if you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit when you retired, you can still enroll in one of the plans. It's just that there's no subsidy and there's a different set of premiums that you end up having to pay. Okay, and somebody's asking a VIA benefits question, so let me go back to that slide. The question is, I have 18 years, so I'll have 18 years of service credit with Acera when I retire, and is the VIA benefits amount different from the 15-15-41? Okay, so my question to you would be, are you going to be Medicare eligible when you retire already? Or are you going to be younger than 65 when you retire? And go ahead and type that into the Q&A. Okay, so you're going to be Medicare eligible. So if you were to enroll in this plan, Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan, you would be eligible at 15 years for the 15-year monthly medical allowance, but it would only pay up to the self premium. So you would pay zero out of pocket. So this would be your monthly medical allowance amount for 2026. Now, if you enroll in an individual plan through VIA benefits, you're looking at this chart right here. Okay, so your 15-year dollar amount would be 394.85 unless in April the retirees committee and the board decide to increase it. It's, I didn't hear anybody against it when they were talking about it in February. So in that case, if they do pass that in April, the monthly medical allowance amount would go up to the other one, which, like you were saying, is 515. And so it would be equal to that. And I'm not sure when it would take effect. I think they were saying that if we did make those changes, it might take effect in August, just to give like some buffer so we can get it all sorted out. But like I said, we'll see what happens in April at the April's Retirees Committee at 9:30 a.m. on the first Wednesday of April. And you're saying the chart for 515.41 doesn't state what plan. Let me go back to that chart. Okay. Um, yeah, it doesn't state what plan because it's just kind of a flat amount that you would be eligible for to pay for the cost of being enrolled in your VIA benefits plan should the board increase it to this. So you choose if you do enroll in VIA benefits, you choose what plan with them, and it comes with a certain premium amount. It may have a deductible, and then you would have if they do increase it to this, you would have this amount of dollars per month to pay for the cost of being enrolled in that VIA benefits plan. So that's how that would work. If they don't pass it, then you would have, let's see here, this amount of dollars per month, 394.85. So I hope that answers your question. And these are for the medical plans only. The dental plan is different. It's a separate thing. It has a separate subsidy. Great. I'm glad. So the dental plan is separate, has separate subsidy amounts. So you can get the medical, you get that money, that subsidy amount. You enroll in the dental, you get that subsidy. Then you enroll in the vision, and you can get that subsidy too. Um, and the vision works similarly. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, um, you have to at least enroll in the VSP standard plan, but it doesn't cost you anything for the standard plan. The subsidy and the self premium are the same amount at $4.63. One option for the VSP plan is you can buy up into the premium plan. The subsidy doesn't increase, so you pay the difference between the $16.63 premium and the $4.63 subsidy. The difference, there's various differences between the plans. The one I know off the top of my head is that the premium plan gives you frames every 12 months. The standard plan gives you frames every 24 months. But again, the details are in our enrollment guide at acera.org/guide. If you have less than the 10 years of Acera service credit when you retire, it is a voluntary enrollment and there's a different set of premiums. Okay, we're closing in on the last topics. I have two more benefits to tell you about, and I have um, one more topic after that, and then we'll be ready for the deferred compensation presentation, just in just about enough time to do all of it. Okay, so the fourth non-guaranteed benefit is the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. So when you enroll in health in a medical plan through Acera and you're Medicare eligible, we mandate that you pick one of our Medicare options. And when you pick one of our Medicare options, you have to go ahead and enroll in Medicare first. You enroll in Medicare, and then it's like you're adding on the higher level of coverage by picking one of our options, whether it's the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan or one of the Medicare via benefits plans. Okay. Now, because you enroll in Medicare, if you've paid into the Medicare system for at least 10 years during your career, Medicare Part A, the hospitalization coverage, is going to be free. You don't have to pay anything for that. Medicare Part B, everyone has to pay for Medicare Part B. It's not very expensive, but there is a charge for it. And so the monthly charge for 2026 that Medicare charges at people with the lowest income level is $202.90. Now the income tiers are pretty high. So the next income tier is you have a much higher income. So almost everybody pays the lowest amount, $202.90 per month. Okay. So you pay that directly to the federal government. If you're already collecting Social Security, they'll take it out of your Social Security check. If not, then they'll charge you for it quarterly. But you have to pay for Medicare Part B. So what Acera does is we offer this benefit called Medicare Part B reimbursement plan, which means that if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit or that service-connected disability retirement, and you enroll in Medicare Part B, so you start being charged by the federal government, we'll reimburse you for the lowest cost of what anyone pays for that, which is currently for 2026 is $202.90. So you enroll in Medicare Part B, you start paying 202.90 to the federal government for Medicare Part B, and all you need to do is fill out our enrollment form for the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan one time and maintain your Medicare Part B enrollment, and you'll start seeing 202.90 showing up in your Acera retirement check to help you pay for being enrolled in Medicare. So it's a really good benefit. Just remember to enroll in it when you become Medicare eligible. Now, if you retire from Acera and you retire before age 65, when you are nearing age 65, we'll send you a letter reminding you about Medicare enrollment, and we'll send you a link to this Medicare page that we have, acera.org/Medicare. This is your step-by-step guide for Medicare and how Acera's plans work with Medicare. So it gives you step by step. It tells you when you're eligible for Medicare, what Medicare is and how it works, your coverage options, when to sign up, how to sign up. If you already retire and you're already Medicare eligible, you're not going to get the invitation, but when you're doing that planning of retirement, just go ahead and go through this section because it tells you everything that you need to know about Acera and Medicare. So it's acera.org/Medicare. And somebody's asking, when will we know if Acera decides to increase the monthly medical allowance, which would benefit the VIA benefit, make the benefit VIA benefits amount different? And when might it go into effect? It's possible that it could go into effect immediately. They might make it go into effect later in the year, like in August they were talking about. It's possible that they might not make that go into effect until the next plan year. I would say that the latest that it would go into effect would be on the next plan year for 2027, if they do pass it in April. What we'll do, and thanks for asking about that. It's a good point. Like, how are you going to know? We'll go ahead and put a news posting at acera.org/news. And we will probably also create a carousel slide for the homepage, letting people know about that after it happens. So the retirees committee is the first Wednesday of April, so that's going to be April 1st. So if they make a recommendation to the full board, um, that would be April 16th when the board would make the final decision. And so it would be sometime after that that we would notify people on the website. Likely, if they make that decision in April. Sometimes the agenda changes, but I think it's likely that that's going to be on the agenda for April. And then somebody's asking, does Medicare Part B go through via benefits? It does not. Okay, so if you sign up for a Medicare connected plan through via benefits, you're going to have to pay a premium, which will be small. It'll be something probably a few $100s or less. There's some free ones too that are zero. But you pay that premium directly to the carrier. So let's say that you sign up for a Medicare connected plan through United Healthcare. Well, you would pay that few $100s to United Healthcare. And that's your premium to have that higher level of coverage. Separately, you're going to pay the Medicare system. You're going to pay for your Medicare Part B directly to the Medicare system. And so your cost for that would be to Medicare. Okay, the final non-guaranteed benefit that I'll talk about is the supplemental cost of living adjustment. This is a very powerful benefit. This is in addition to the vested cost of living adjustment, the guaranteed one. This one, it's a not guaranteed. It's based on available funds. But what this does is it keeps all of our retirees at 85% of your original buying power that you had at the time that you retired. What this means is that if you ever lose 15 or more percent of your buying power to inflation, because, inflation is kind of cumulative over the years, if you ever lose 15% or more of your buying power, the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in automatically and keeps you at 85% of what your original buying power was at the time that you retired. And it keeps you there. So you are never below 15% of your original buying power. It's kind of an amazing benefit. And whenever we survey our members about the various healthcare benefits and this benefit, in which we ask them to tell us which are the ones that they like best, the medical coverage is always the first, and this one's always the second because it keeps you you can't lose buying power more than 15% in retirement. You don't have to think about it. It happens automatically, and you don't have to have a certain number of years of service credit to qualify for it. And then somebody's asking, is the supplemental COLA given on an individual basis? Sort of. It's based on um, everyone who retired in a particular year from April 1st through um, March 31st of the following year is kind of like in one cohort for the um, COLAs. And so you all have the same banked percentages in your COLA bank. And when you get more than 15% of banked percentages in your COLA bank, that means you've lost more than 50%, 15% of your buying power. Everyone who retired in that year gets the same percentage cost of living, supplemental cost of living adjustment that keeps you at 85% of your original buying power. You're welcome. Okay, so last topic. There's just two slides on this. The first one is working after retirement. The next one is a few more scenarios. Working after retirement. So you retire from Acera. If you want to, you can go work for somewhere else, and we don't care. We're going to continue your Acera retirement payments because you're an Acera retiree. You get them every month for the rest of your life. Okay. If you want to come back to work for one of Acera's six participating employers, you have two options. Your first option is to maintain your Acera retirement and continue your Acera retirement payments. So you're still an Acera retiree, you're just coming back and doing a little work for your uh, maybe your employer that you retired from, or maybe one of Acera's other five employers. If you do that, you don't earn any additional credit toward retirement. You're still an Acera retiree, so you're not earning a second retirement. There are restrictions that apply. There's a waiting period, there's duration limits. You basically can only work half time. You're going to want to read about those. Okay, kind of your second sub choice within the second choice of coming back to work for an Acera employer is that you can pause retirement payments. This is brand new. We've only been doing this for like a year and a half or 2 years. So if you come back to work for one of our six participating employers, you can pause your Acera retirement and you can earn a second retirement. You will earn additional credit toward retirement in a second retirement. And then anytime you want, you can retire for the second time. We'll restart your original retirement and we'll add to it your second retirement. So you'll get higher payment amounts. And then you'll also get all of the cost of living adjustments had you never paused your retirement payments. There is more you're going to want to read about that at acera.org/working. Okay, now, last slide. Some life events that I just want to point out. I talked a lot about going straight into retirement from active work. Some of you will not do that. You will stop work and you will defer your retirement to a later date, become what we call a deferred member. You're going to want to read our page about deferred retirement. There's some things that you're going to want to know about that. Okay, next item. I already mentioned this. We do offer death benefits should you die before retirement. You can read about those at acera.org/death. You can learn about the advanced death benefit election there. If your retirement is not within the next few weeks, or even if it is, all active members should make this advanced death benefit election because it ensures that you provide, should you die before retirement, the maximum retirement benefits to your beneficiaries. Okay, there's no downside to it. Sorry about that. There's no downside to it. You can read more about it here. You can make that election at acera.org/BEN. Okay, divorce or domestic partnership dissolution. I did mention that your retirement benefits are considered community property when you get divorced or dissolve your domestic partnership, and sometimes your benefits, that community property can get, some of it can get divided off. So you're going to want to read about that beforehand. There's you can negotiate other pieces of community property away to keep your Acera account whole, if that's how you want to do it. So you can read about the effects of divorce on your Acera benefit here at acera.org/divorce. Disability retirement. I mentioned this briefly. This is a separate track from the regular retirement. If you ever become permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties, you can apply for the disability retirement. It's kind of a lengthy process, but there are benefits to being awarded the disability retirement. It is a decision that the Board of Retirement makes whether to award people the disability retirement or not, based on the evidence that is uncovered during the process. And then there's the last thing I want to mention is that whenever you retire and then you move, please fill out our address change form. I believe it's in DocuSign, so it's easy to fill out, and it lets us continue to send you official correspondence, including our annual report, and most importantly, our open enrollment packet that we mail out every October that has all the healthcare changes in it. If you have any questions at any time, we have an entire call center. Their only job is to answer your questions about your retirement. Okay. So contact us, email us at acera.org/contact, call us 510-628-3000. Okay, so on behalf of Acera's Board of Retirement and Acera staff, we wish you a beautiful retirement. You earned it. Thank you so much for your service to the residents of Alameda County over the years. You have really earned an amazing retirement, and we hope it's an amazing one. We hope it's a beautiful retirement. So enjoy and let us know how we can help you. Okay, the next item that we're going to do is that now we're going to have a very short presentation from the 457B expert, Gene Hilliard. Gene, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Great.
Perfect.
So while you get your slides set up, I'll introduce you.
Okay.
Um, Gene has been hired for many years by Alameda County, the Alameda County Deferred Compensation Program, to provide financial education on the 457B plan to the employees of Alameda County. If you don't work for Alameda County, don't worry. 99% of what he's going to tell you is going to apply to you. So what he's going to do is tell you about the 457B plan, which is kind of like a 401k, but for government workers. You all have access to save additional money toward retirement in one of these accounts. If you've already started one, he'll tell you all about disbursements and how to take those in retirement. If you haven't started one, he'll probably talk about some catch-up payments that you can make if you do want to start one. So I definitely recommend sticking around. And this will probably take like 30, 40 minutes.
Correct. 30, 40 minutes should be enough time.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so your slide looks good. Take it away, Gene.
All right. Perfect. Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, as Mike mentioned, my name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. We were hired roughly 16 years ago by, at the time, Prudential, now Empowered, to provide retirement planning, investment advice slash guidance, and education. I'm a licensed financial consultant, been licensed for over 23 years, helping my clients create wealth, maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime of their kids and grandkids. I'm also a retirement counselor, and my goal as a retirement counselor is to help each one of you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement, if it's possible. What do I mean by that? Well, I'd like for all of you to receive 100% of what you're receiving now that you're working, right? You have a Sarah, so you're probably halfway there. And if you add in Social Security, that's going to get you pretty close. Uh, but I'd rather let's shoot for 100. If we need to settle for 70, 80%, 90%, then so be it. Okay. So today we're going to talk about retirement readiness. And I'm also going to encourage folks that are on the call, hang in there with me because there's some changes that's going on with the plan that I want to make sure that all of you are aware of because you're probably going to be affected. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's see. All right. These are the areas that I'm going to cover throughout the presentation, right? I consider them retirement mile markers, right? Certain ages, I want you to make sure you're focusing on certain things. When you're 50, 59 and a half, when you're 65, when you're 66, 67, when you're 73, there's certain things that you really want to kind of get yourself focused on and making sure that you're on the right track. Okay, so at these markers, you want to conduct a situation analysis. You want to have an idea of how much your retirement income is going to be, whether that be a SARA or any other pension that you're receiving, how much you're going to get from Social Security, what's your health care situation, estate planning. You want to start thinking about it, creating a plan and a strategy in terms of your drawdown strategy, meaning how are you going to tap into all of your assets towards retirement? And then lastly, your required minimum distribution. But let's get started with a current situation analysis. You want to kind of get a feel for where you're at, where you stand, Are you in trouble? Are you in a good place? I'd rather you determine whether or not there's a problem so we can fix it instead of at the last minute, oh my gosh, I'm in bad shape. And then you're scrambling to try to get your ducks in a row in terms of creating enough retirement income. So when you're conducting a situation analysis, you start with your retirement savings today. How much do you have in deferred comp? How much do you have at uh, your other employers, right? How much do you have in the bank that is earmarked for retirement? You also want to know how much you're going to receive from Social Security, whether that be at age 62, 66, 67, age 70. How much are you going to receive from Social Security? Log on to ssa.gov and create a user ID and password. And then that's where you'll find out how much you're going to receive from Social Security. Available assets. What do you have at your disposal that is earmarked for retirement? What are your current expenses, right? What are your projected future expenses? Will that house be paid off? Will that car be paid off, right? Are you going to pay off that Parent Plus student loan for your kids, right? So those are some things you want to start to gather to put together a current situation analysis. Now let's dive into the milestones. Once you turn age 50, that's the magic number for a lot of people when they start to get a little concerned or stressed about where their retirement situation is. So age 50, you want to stop and find out, is it possible for me to save more towards retirement in order for me to live the retirement that I so sorely deserve? 59 and a half is another age. You want to stop and ask yourself, all right, is it appropriate for me to start pulling money from other retirement accounts when I'm 59 and a half because you avoid that penalty? Now, that penalty does not apply to deferred comp. There's no such thing as an early withdrawal penalty with deferred comp. This pretty much is referring to if you have 401ks, a 403b, even a 401a, if you have that on the outside some, there's a penalty associated with that if you withdraw money before you're 59 and a half. So understanding the pros and cons of withdrawing at age 59 and a half. Next, you have Social Security. This is the earliest that you can collect Social Security. It's age 62. Is it appropriate to start pulling money at that particular time? 65, Mike did an excellent job talking about Medicare. I have a few Medicare slides, but I'm going to kind of fly through those because I think you guys have all the information you need in terms of Medicare. But 65 is the age you want to consider signing up for Medicare. Age 66 and 67 is the age in which you'll get full Social Security benefits, full retirement benefits. Okay. Is it appropriate to wait until age 70 or 60, 68, 69, 70, where your payment is even higher? Is it appropriate to wait until then? And then 73 is the new age of the required minimum distribution, right? It used to be 70 and a half. The magic number is 73. This is where you're required by law to start taking out a minimum. Otherwise, you may get penalized roughly 25% of what you should have taken out. The one thing I do want to make sure that you all are aware of, if you are 73 and you're still working, you're not required to take money out of your deferred comp. So if you're 73, you're still working for the county, you're not required to take out that RMD. However, once you leave county service, the RMD is going to be required the following year and so on. Okay. So let's talk about if you're under 50, what should you be focusing on? Continued your contributions. You still want to kind of look at if you could potentially invest more towards retirement. Review your asset allocation. We've had a huge run up in the stock market over the past few years, and maybe, just maybe, your portfolio is too risky for your risk tolerance. So it may be time to start to review your asset allocation. Review your retirement strategy. And what I mean by that is you may have set out to retire at 56. Are you on pace to make that happen? Or maybe you decided you wanted to retire at 60. Kind of review your retirement strategy. See if you're truly on track to retire at the age that you desire. And then estate planning. Even though you're under 50, maybe you think you're not rich, but if you own a home in the Bay Area, right, and you have some assets in deferred comp, et cetera, estate planning, I think, is important, and it's not as expensive as you think. Okay, so what should you focus on when you're 50 plus? Maxing out and catching up is important. Estate planning is also important. Beneficiaries are important. So let's talk about that. So if you're under 50 years of age, the maximum to invest in the 457 or deferred comp is 24,500. If you're 50 and over, you can add an additional $8,000 on top of that as the max. Okay. If you still have some extra money to invest towards retirement and you're eligible for an IRA, you can do that on the outside. If you're under 50, 7,500 is the max. If you're 50 and over, you can add an additional 1,100. And then also wanted to make sure that you guys are aware, if you are between the ages of 60 and 63, not only could you invest the 24,500, but you're allowed to invest an additional 11,250 within age 60 to 63. So I consider that a super catch up. So take advantage of that. That's part of the Secure Act 2.0, and this applies for 2026. And then the last one here is the last 3-year special catch up. This is where you can invest $49,000 a year for the next 3 years. This can happen for 3 years prior to retirement. Now, you don't have to retire after the 3 years, but you just have that window to invest $49,000 a year for year 1, year 2, and year 3. And if you decide that you want to continue to work, then you would just revert back to the 50 and over catch up. Estate planning. Let's briefly talk about estate planning as it relates to taxes, will or trust, who gets the family heirloom. I'm often excited to hear my daughter who attends UC Davis, she's 21 years old. She loves to wear my wife's wedding ring, right? She loves to put it on every time she comes here. She puts that ring on. And she often says, Mom, when it's time for you to transition, I want that ring. Right. But then I have another daughter who's thinking the same thing. So my point here is I want to encourage all of you when you're creating an estate plan, that there's some special family heirlooms that you want to make sure passes on to the next generation. Ensure that it's in writing who's supposed to get what. So I just thought I'd bring that up. And you want to make it easy on everyone. I have a couple of cousins who are still semi-feuding over my uncle's inherit. Oh, my uncle passed away. There are a couple of houses involved. They're still kind of semi-feuding over who's supposed to get what. So when you're creating an estate plan, it's very important that you be precise, be clear, make it easy on your family members, because it's hard enough as it is with you not being around. Okay. Now let's talk about probate. Probate is a judicial procedure where a judge or the court pretty much details who the rightful heirs of a person who just recently transitioned. That's probate. It could take 1 full year, so that your true beneficiaries potentially could take a year before they can get their rightful inheritance. So how do you avoid or skipping the probate court? Well, number one, you can create a trust, right? And it's not as expensive as you think it is. I believe if you're a county employee, you have the option of signing up in open enrollment to, I think it's MetLife Legal, and I think that's a few bucks a month. Sign up for that, have them hire you an estate planning attorney to help you create a trust, right? So a trust helps to avoid probate. Naming beneficiaries on all of your accounts avoids probate, right? So if you have bank accounts, you can set up what is called a POD or TOD. That's transfer on death or payable on death. That's just like adding a beneficiary. So be sure that you do that, and that avoids probate. And then lastly, making sure that your property or your accounts or what have you are held jointly, specifically joint with rights of survivorship. What does that mean? Well, if one person passes away, everything moves over to the next person who's on the account. That's joint with rights of survivorship. You got to be careful though, because there's something also called joint tenants in common. That's where two people own an asset. And if one person passes away, then that 50% will go directly, potentially will go directly to their descendants. And if they don't have a will, et cetera, set up, that could be a probatable item. So just because it's joint doesn't mean necessarily you're in a good position. It needs to be joint with rights of survivorship. If you're unsure of who your beneficiaries are on your deferred comp account, because in the past, I believe probably 15 years ago, you completed an application, a beneficiary form, and then we scanned it, and it was kept at the treasurer's office. Okay, and it's hard to get a hold of, from what I understand. So, but have no fear. Log online, go to AlamedaCountyDCP.com, create a user ID and password. Once you're into the system, then you can just add your beneficiaries right there. That will be the new record of your beneficiary. So you don't necessarily have to complete a form, just go online and enter your beneficiaries. And by doing so, you'll avoid a disaster of probate. What's another milestone you should be thinking about when you're 60 plus? You want to start thinking about when to take Social Security, determining full retirement age, calculating your benefits. Are there taxes going to be involved with Social Security? So let's talk about that a little bit. Here are the dates and years in which you are considered, or when you decide to collect Social Security, you'll get full Social Security. So if you're born in 55, you're looking at 66 and 2 months, and it has to be specific. If you're born in 55, you have to be 66 and 2 months before you can get full retirement benefits from Social Security, et cetera, et cetera. If you were born after 1960, to obtain or receive full retirement benefits from Social Security, you have to be at least 67. Okay, let's talk about calculating benefits. And I'm sure I mentioned it earlier, but if you collect Social Security at age 62, you're going to take a huge hit, roughly 25% less than what you could have gotten at full retirement. So don't collect Social Security just because you can, because it's also going to be problematic because you may get taxed on it more if you collect Social Security and you're also working. So kind of be careful there. But if you are going to retire, if your plan is I'm going to get out of Dodge at age 62, doesn't matter, then I'm totally fine with collecting Social Security early at 62, if that's when you're going to retire. But if you're still working, I would advise waiting and not collecting Social Security until you've fully retired. Let's talk about taxes. Social Security is not taxable if you're single and you're bringing in under $25,000, or if you're married, $32,000. Once you exceed those thresholds, then your Social Security is going to then become taxable. Keep in mind, ACERA counts. So if your ACERA benefit that you're going to receive in retirement exceeds 25,000 or exceeds 32,000 if you're married, a portion of your Social Security could be taxable. But check with your tax advisor. He or she can kind of confirm whether or not that's the case. 65 is when you want to start thinking about your withdrawal strategy. And what I mean by that is you have probably have a number of different types of accounts that you're dealing with as it relates to retirement. You're going to have accounts that are brokerage accounts or trust accounts where there's money that is earmarked for retirement. You're going to have pre-tax buckets of money. You're going to have Roth money potentially. So your withdrawal strategy centers around which assets do you tap first. I typically tell people this is the order I would go. Start with your taxable money, joint trust accounts, then move to your pre-tax money, that's deferred comp, right? Traditional IRAs. And then lastly, you want to start tapping your Roth money, right? Your tax-free money. And the reason why that's important is you want your pre-tax money, you want your Roth money to compound as much as possible, right? And let that ride. And then just tap into your taxable money where the bulk of it has already been taxed. Okay. You want to determine how much and when you're going to start withdrawing money. People ask me all the time, Gene, how much is the appropriate amount to withdraw from my retirement accounts every year? And I typically tell people start with roughly 4%. I mean, you really want to look at your budget and see if you can afford to not touch your deferred comp, et cetera. But if you need to pull from it, just cap it at roughly 4%. And then every year you can kind of take a peek to see, do you need more? Do you need less, et cetera? So we can come up with a plan. But 4% is a good starting point. And it doesn't matter whether you take it out quarterly, whether you take it out monthly, or you take it out once a year. It doesn't matter. It's all going to be taxed the same. Okay. Health insurance. You want to start thinking about Medicare and what are the costs associated with it. Okay. Turn savings into retirement income. I talked earlier about what accounts to tap first. Remember, I said start with your taxable money, then move to your pre-tax money, then move on to your tax-free money, your Roth money. Keep in mind, even though you've retired, there's still some risks that you have to deal with going forward. There's market volatility, market going up and down, tax strategies. Did you make the appropriate decision in terms of whether to go with the pre-tax bucket or the Roth bucket? Low interest rates, maybe the bulk of your money is in CDs, right? We all know interest rates are probably going to go down before they go up. So that could affect your retirement strategy. Inflation, when inflation moves higher, that's going to affect your purchasing power. Mike did an excellent job talking about, and your plan with Acera has a great tool built in where there's a way in which you can make sure that your purchasing power stays intact. Higher taxes is also a possibility. Cost of living, depending on where you live. If you're renting somewhere, landlord decides to raise the rent, that's cost of living. That could be more money out of your pocket. And then longevity. The longer you live, the longer your money has to survive. So longevity is also an issue. Okay, 65, as I talked about, Medicare, you want to be thinking about that, signing up for Part A, Part B, making sure you're timely about signing up. So if you have any questions regarding Medicare, log on to acera.org. There's tons of information there, frequently asked questions that you might want to take a peek at. Okay, now let's talk about required minimum distribution. As I mentioned, 73 years of age is the age in which you have to start taking out a withdrawal from your account, whether you want to or not, whether you need the money or not, and then it's also going to be taxed. All right, and there's a huge penalty if you don't take that money out timely. Right, it used to be 50% of what you should have taken out. You'll get penalized, but now it's 25%. So they've lowered that. And keep in mind, if you're still working for the county, you're 73, the RMD does not apply. You don't have to worry about it. But once you leave county service, then you need to start taking that money out of your account automatically. And I would strongly encourage every one of you to have Empower calculated for you. So you never forget. They're going to be on the hook to make sure that you get your RMD timely. Okay. Once you leave county service, you have money in deferred comp. You can leave your money in the plan. So you're not required to start pulling money out. You're not required to roll it to an IRA. You can leave it where it is, right? A lot of great tools here. In terms of the plan, everything stays exactly the same with the exception of you just can't add to it. There's actively managed funds. You can use Fisher Investments as the managed account program. You have access to this money penalty free. There's Goalmaker. So there's great tools, great good performance. You still have access to all the financial advisors that are part of the plan. So I would encourage leave the money in the plan. After the dust settles, then make a decision on whether or not you want to, move the account, because in some cases it is appropriate to move your money out of deferred comp into an IRA, right? But if you're going to move your money from deferred comp mutual fund program into a mutual fund program on the outside, there's the potential that you'll be paying more. So there's a lot you're going to have to deal with in retirement. I'd say leave this as the last item or area of business that you have to focus on, and then reach out to us and we'll help you make the appropriate decision that makes sense. All right, let's talk about the newest updates, the new features of deferred comp. Number one, you have in-plan Roth conversions, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few moments. There's the super catch-up contributions. I briefly touched on that. There's a new Roth rule for certain high-income earners. Don't particularly care for that item, but I just want to make sure that you guys are prepared going forward. There's loans for separated employees. As you know, loans were only available for those folks who are currently employed with the county. Now they're offering loans to employees that are left or quit or retired from the county. And then also, lastly, you can roll money into the plan after you separate or retire from the county. Okay, so let's talk about the in-plan Roth conversion. This item has been very, very popular. I had tons of people coming to talk to me about it because they recognize the bulk of their wealth is invested pre-tax. And when you're invested money pre-tax, you're required to take that RMD that I talked about earlier. And people really would love to move money out of the pre-tax bucket into the Roth bucket. And that's what this is. If you have money, a lot of your money invested in the pre-tax bucket of deferred comp, you now have the ability to reposition or recharacterize or pull that money out of the pre-tax bucket and deposit it into the Roth bucket of deferred comp. Okay. Now, there's a cost associated with that. As you know, the pre-tax bucket of money hasn't been taxed. So if you want to transition over to Roth with this money, you have to have money on the outside. You can't use money inside of deferred comp to pay the taxes. You have to have money on the outside to pay the taxes, right? Also, the money that you are converting over to Roth, that's going to be part of your income for the year. So whatever you're making with the county, you're going to add in whatever amount you want to convert, add those two together, and you're going to have to pay taxes on it. So you really got to be careful, because if you convert too much, then that potentially can move you into a higher tax bracket. And to me, that's problematic. So if you need some assistance with that, I would strongly encourage consulting with your tax professional before you make this decision, because this is not reversible. You cannot just say, oh, Gene, I changed my mind. Can I put it back over into the pre-tax bucket? Can't do it. So you want to make sure that converting is appropriate for you. Okay. But the good news for those folks who do convert, that's less money that's going to be required to take out as an RMD. So when you move money to the Roth bucket of deferred comp, there's no RMD associated with it. So therefore, the bulk of your retirement assets could be used for, if by chance there's a nursing home situation, or by chance you're really looking to pass this money on to the next generation. That's more money that could get passed on to the next generation if there's no RMD associated with your account. All right, so let's talk about the new Roth rules for certain high income earners. As I'm sure you're aware, I'm going to go back here. Let me go back to where let's see, let's go back. I'm going way too far. Here we go. All right, so here are the limits for contributing to deferred comp. You can contribute 24,500. If you're 50 and over, you can invest 8,000, or if you're 60 and 63, you can invest 11,250. In the past, you had the ability to put all of your catch-up money into the pre-tax bucket, right? All of that, the 24,500 plus the 8,000, it's about 32,500, right? All of that could go into pre-tax. But the rule has now changed whereby if your income exceeds $150,000, then you're unable to put all that money into the pre-tax bucket. A portion must go into the Roth, right? So if you're 50 and over, 24,500 can go into the pre-tax bucket, and then that 8,000 has to go into the Roth, whether you like it or not. Same with that 60 to 63 catch up. 24,000 can be deposited into the pre-tax bucket, but then the 11,250 must go into the Roth. Again, whether you like it or not, if your income exceeds 150,000 from the previous year. Now, that 3-year catch up, that 49,000 that you can contribute for 3 years, that does not apply. It doesn't matter what your income is. If you want to put 100% of your money into that pre-tax bucket, that 49,000 times 3, knock yourself out. You can do that. So this is, I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. The unfortunate part of all of this is that you are on the hook for making sure that this happens, right? The county's not responsible. Empower is not responsible for making sure that if you're 50 and over, that 8,000 goes into the Roth bucket. You are unfortunately will have to take responsibility for that. Now, I've been lobbying Empower, lobbying the county to say, hey, it's not fair that county employees have to do this. This should be our responsibility. And I believe at some point in time, they will come up with a plan where you don't have to take responsibility for that. But I feel obligated to just at least let you know at this point in time, you got to make sure that you're following these rules. Otherwise, there's very significant penalties. So, but if you have any questions as it relates to this in particular in your situation, please don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Okay. And we're getting close to the end. Loans were only available for those folks who were currently county employees. Loans are now available for participants who've separated from service. So hypothetically, say you wanted to buy a new car in the past and you wanted to use your deferred comp to do that. In the past, you were pretty much required to withdraw money from your deferred comp, pay the taxes, and then go buy the car, right? And that potentially could push you into a higher tax bracket. You have 20, 25% in taxes that you have to pay. But now you don't have to withdraw money. You can borrow from your deferred comp to buy that car. And then you can just make payments back to yourself. So that's an option for you if you're interested at some point in time where you need to borrow from your deferred comp. In the past, if you wanted to roll money from a previous employer, you needed to still be working for the county. So now they changed the rules. If you have separated service, you can now roll money from an outside institution or a previous employer into deferred comp. It may make sense for you. Reach out to me if you are looking for some guidance in relationship to whether or not to move money from the outside into deferred comp once you retire. Okay, so the end is just the beginning. You've sacrificed quite a bit to make sure that you're in a comfortable position towards retirement. But this is just the beginning. Now there's a lot of risk. There's still work to do going forward. But please feel free. Keep in mind we are here to help. If you need some guidance, you need uh, some direction with as it relates to retirement, just let us know. For those folks who have not created a user ID and password for the site, I encourage you to do so. If you're not in the plan, sign up first, then you can log on and register for the site. But if you're in the plan, register, create a user ID and password. This is where you can review your investments, you can move money around, you can add beneficiaries, etc. There are 5 different financial consultants that are here to help. There's Mark, Daryl, myself, Dan, and Jose. You can just contact us via the website, AlamedaCountyDCP.com. You can call us at this 855 number, hit option 3. We're all ready, willing, and able to help you with your financial planning or retirement planning journey. We pretty much all offer the same services at no charge. So please don't hesitate and reach out to us. So with that, I'd love to entertain any questions.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Gene.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Mike.